A different picture though across much of Scotland. Here it will be drier, a few showers, blustery showers in that keen breeze, but it will be chilly under those clear spells as well. Temperatures drop into single figures, but a milder night to come for much of England and Wales. So as we get started then on Sunday morning, most places will be off to a cloudy start. There'll be some further outbreaks of rain or drizzle across many northern and western parts, but some brightness, particularly across Scotland first thing and to the east of any high ground. But rain will turn heavier and more persistent through the afternoon. And that sets the scene then for a very windy spell of weather across western Scotland through Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning, with a warning already in force for that. I'll see you soon.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
A cracking show lined up for you tonight. Can this Conservative government survive allegations of illegal parties this time last year? Is the government bruised or fatally wounded? We'll speak to Red Wall Tory MP Brendan Clark-Smith, who has just announced he will be voting against the government's Plan B measures next Tuesday in Parliament. He's live at 9:20. My Mark Meets guest tonight is a legend of the newspaper business and broadcasting. He co-founded Talk Sport and was a senior member of the Football Association during one of the most turbulent periods in its history. My pal Mike Parry tells his incredible story in Mark Meets at 10. Plus, more trouble for Joe Biden. We'll speak to Donald Trump's former top aide, Jason Miller. And following the release of a family royal portrait of the Cambridges, we'll be showcasing your family Christmas snaps. So get them into me now and throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. My big opinion is coming in 2 minutes' time. Plan B can F off. And I want your reaction. But first, the headlines with Karen.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The UK Health Security Agency says the Omicron variant is expected to be the dominant coronavirus strain by mid-December, with over 1 million cases if the current trend continues. Analysis showed that the first two vaccinations of AstraZeneca and Pfizer gave much lower protection against Omicron than other vaccines. However, the health agency said that initial data showed the booster jab provides around 70 to 75% protection against symptomatic infection. Only 3 people will be able to visit care home residents this winter. As part of the government's new care home guidance, each resident will also have one essential caregiver. The Department of Health and Social Care said the move was in order to balance the current COVID-19 risk with the need to keep people safe. Staff testing will also be increased from 2 lateral flow tests per week to 3, alongside a weekly PCR test. Sir Keir Starmer says Boris Johnson is not fit for office and trust is at an all-time low. He made the comments while meeting residents in Hadston in Northumberland. It follows an investigation into the refurbishment of the Prime Minister's flat in Downing Street and 3 alleged Christmas parties during lockdown last December. Number 10 has announced it's cancelled this year's event. The independent body responsible for handling complaints against the police is considering reopening the investigation into serial killer Stephen Port. An inquest found officers in East London missed opportunities to catch Port, and mistakes probably contributed to the murders of 4 young gay men. He's serving a whole life sentence that began in 2016. One of the victims' mothers says the deaths could have been avoided if the police hadn't made errors.
It is the fact that it was just basic policing that wasn't done in the very first place. Had that been done, the other 3 lads wouldn't have died. Plain and simple as that. If they'd have done the basics of policing and, push Port more instead of just accepting everything he said, the other 3 lads would never have died.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is a step closer to being extradited from the UK following a win by the US government in the High Court. Judges overturned a previous ruling that he shouldn't be sent to the US because of a risk of suicide. He's wanted on allegations of a conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defence information after hundreds of thousands of leaked documents on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were published. His fiancée says that they will appeal the decision. You're right up to date. Now back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's Friday, December the 10th, and we have a fabulous show lined up for you. Let me tell you, my Mark Meets guest is a legend of TV, radio and print journalism. You'll have seen him on the show before. Fleet Street icon, co-founder of TalkSport, former head of the press department at the FA, and a fixture of the TV chat shows. Mike Parry is live at 10. What a character. Don't forget, Mike, responsible for one of the biggest viral videos in history. The Cinnamon Challenge. Will be showing it uninterrupted, unedited after 10. With inflation at nearly 7% in America, a crime wave across various states, and extreme political correctness destroying its institutions, is America in a long-term decline? And is Joe Biden going to get a kicking in the midterm elections next year? We'll be joined live from the United States by Donald Trump's former top aide, Jason Miller. We're also going to speak to a top author on why a charitable donation is the best Christmas gift that you can give this year. And in the big question, I'm joined by MP Brendan Clark-Smith. He is, of course, a red wall Conservative who explains to me in this show at 9:20 why he'll not be voting for the government's Plan B measures on Tuesday. That's right, he's voting against, and he'll tell me why shortly. I'll also ask him whether the government can survive allegations of illegal parties this time last year. Is the government bruised or fatally damaged? Brendan Clark-Smith, one of the most high-profile red wall Tory MPs, live in a few minutes. Now, I've always backed Boris for supporting Freedom Day on the 19th of July. He's got a huge electoral mandate from December 2019, and he got Brexit done, so he's got his strengths. But is he a serial liar, or just the victim of a media witch hunt? We'll get the definitive answer from the TV human lie detector, Darren Stanton. Darren's up before 10. At the end of the show, before midnight, we'll play another great British game show, a fun show. Game show, I should say, around the news and one particular story of the day. Tonight's game is called Family Misfortunes. And you'll find out why at 11:45. But here's a clue. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have released a family portrait to celebrate Christmas. Here it is. Aren't they absolutely gorgeous? What a lovely family they are. I've got to say, the kids are absolutely blooming. Mum and Dad don't look too bad either. But as far as I'm concerned, you are the real royalty. So send in your family Christmas snaps to mark@gbnews.uk. By the tree, around the table from last year, with the pets, whatever you've got, send it over and let's get in the Christmas spirit. So a busy 3 hours to come. Remember, we don't do boring, not on my watch. I can offer you a perfect blend of information, debate and entertainment. God knows we need a laugh right now. Speaking of which, tackling all of the big stories of the day and looking at tomorrow's newspaper front pages is my amazing panel, the amazing comedian Francine Lewis, broadcaster Ali Miraj, and my Mark Meets guest Mike Parry will stick around for our panel later in the show. My priority is to get your opinions on the national television airwaves. So drop me a line now and throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk, and get those Christmas snaps over. I'd love to see them. So let's have a laugh. Let's have a right royal ding-dong. And be clear, folks, this is not a party tonight because we're having wine and cheese. So it's not a party, just a lot of fun. Let's get to work. Caroline's in charge tonight, which means it's going to be a great show. We are in dark times, and I'm not just talking about the short days at this time of the year. At the moment, it feels like the end of days. Any hope that we were going to go back to the old normal feels like a distant memory now. We now live in what can only be described as a semi-democracy, with the government supported to the hilt by the so-called opposition for every set of ruinous measures that they inflict on us. Labour and the Tories are in coalition, and it's the coalition from hell. A coalition which has masked kids as young as 12 all day long in the classroom and consigned children to months of lonely, solitary lessons online. It's a coalition which effectively closed the NHS for a year and a half, potentially shortening the lives of millions and certainly damaging them. We know about an anticipating waiting list of 12 million people. It's about 5.5, 6 at the moment. And the Telegraph recently reported that 750,000 cases of cancer may have been missed during lockdown, 750,000 people. That's before you get to heart disease, dementia, and all of the other ailments which threaten human life, which we seem to have forgotten about during this pandemic. In my view, almost every disease you can think of is actually worse than COVID. And the University of Bristol have told me that creating the biggest recession in 300 years will ultimately claim 500,000 lives due to economic damage. This coalition has also closed once viable businesses, presided over a mental health tsunami, and wrecked people's lives. A question no one will ever answer me is why it's okay to wreck lives. Why is human damage ever justified? All for a virus non-fatal to the vast majority of the population. A third were told to pretend they've got it. What the hell is going on? There's been a theme in the course of this pandemic. As the news gets better, the measures get worse. And we've seen it again this week. With hospitalisations and deaths a fraction of where they were this time last year. These are the rates of admission to ICU, and you'll see there's a massive difference between now and last year, and things have flattened out in the most positive way possible. And yet, we enter so-called Plan B COVID restrictions at an estimated cost to the economy of £18 billion. Your money and mine. All brought to you by the coalition from hell, Labour and the Tories. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his deputy, Keir Starmer. The terrible twins, the Chuckle brothers, Dumb and Dumber. Now, this Omicron variant is, by all accounts, highly transmissible, but it seems to be mild. There are no examples of anyone dying from it anywhere in the world. And the South Africans who identified it are puzzled at our overreaction. And yet not satisfied with a better safe than sorry policy of Plan B, in which we won't be safe, but we will be sorry, the press are reporting that even more severe restrictions are being drawn up for January. Punishment, of course, for Christmas. We know the script. We heard it all last year. Now, there are a handful of principled politicians who will be voting against these scientifically debatable but clearly damaging restrictions on Tuesday. One of them is the Conservative MP for Bassett Law, Brendan Clark-Smith. And Brendan will join me live on the programme in a couple of minutes' time. These measures, rolled out before a clear risk from the new variant is identified, will wreak needless damage on the hospitality sector, to name but one. And hospitality is responsible for a huge part of our economy, our national income, and a big employer of women and young people in particular. It's going to be further destroyed by this decision, and it doesn't need to happen. And this is the time of year, of course, when hospitality should be making most of their profits. So to introduce these measures when data around Omicron is still vague but encouraging, and when hospitalisations are so stable, well, it's cruel, reckless and wrong. I find it slightly evil, to be honest. But what chills me to the core most is the idea that these measures may be being rolled out in order to distract from the government's alleged rule-breaking around parties a year ago. If this government is willing to inflict further damage on the country and its people to hide a political scandal, then we are in a dark place indeed. And those who say Boris Johnson is not fit for high office would be right. Now, I don't normally care about the Westminster bubble and the soap opera at 10 Downing Street, Sleaze, expensive wallpaper, all the rest of it. I think the recent Sleaze allegations, though a concern, don't even touch the sides when it comes to the crucially important issues affecting you, the British people. The shocking cost of living, housing, the integrity of our borders, the safety of our streets, the quality of our schools, and the effectiveness of our health service. But the allegations around multiple parties being thrown last year, when the rest of us were unable to see our families, may have huge implications for the ongoing viability of this government. There are suggestions reported in the Times newspaper today that up to 7 lockdown-breaking gatherings took place in November and December. 7 parties whilst we were locked up, including government staff leaving dues and alleged parties at Johnson's flat, the Cabinet Office and the Department for Education. So who's investigating this worrying set of allegations? Simon Case at the Cabinet Office. You couldn't make this up. They are investigating themselves, folks. This is the kind of behaviour that would embarrass a banana republic. Now, the virus is very nasty and has killed too many people, but a tiny proportion of the population. So notwithstanding the horrific loss of life and nasty symptoms experienced by some, what this virus has really succeeded in doing is bringing out the worst in our leaders, precipitating a coalition of hell between Labour and the Tories, diluting our democracy, destroying our fundamental liberties, smashing the economy to pieces with a debt burden that will have to be dealt with by future generations, creating a non-COVID death toll, which will obviously dwarf that of COVID. And ultimately, we've been left with a diminished, damaged, scarred and less successful country. And this supposedly libertarian, freedom-loving Prime Minister wants to have a national conversation about mandating the vaccine for a disease that millions have had, that the vast majority have been vaccinated against, and for which over 90% of the population carry antibodies. What the hell is going on? If we continue on this trajectory, it doesn't end well. Forced vaccinations, COVID passports, linking your medical status to certain freedoms, with an unprecedented assault on all our basic liberties and bodily autonomy, the Western world is slowly turning into China. Jacinda Ardern, the Kiwi Mussolini, has just banned smoking in New Zealand. She's banned smoking for your health. We are living in an age of autocracy. Democracy itself is under attack, and freedom is now just a luxury bestowed upon the public by governments, conditional upon what they deem to be the correct behaviours. Democracy hasn't faced this level of threat for decades, and it hasn't faced such a unilateral threat across so many freedom-loving nations ever. But with the scandal around number 10 parties, I think we have an opportunity. Because a government which laughs at its own rules is one that will not be able to govern indefinitely. Devoid of any moral or intellectual authority, the public will deem it within their rights to ignore these rules, just as their leaders did. Matt Hancock on CCTV, Dominic Cummings, and now these alleged parties at number 10. Potentially 7, can you believe it? Now, the government and sage scientists have cried wolf too many times over a virus which is now not far off flu statistically. And the public are slowly waking up to the damage and they're wising up to the bullshit. Countless people who followed the rules previously are, for example, now ignoring the mask mandate. I've seen it, you've seen it. I don't know anyone that's going to allow the government to cancel their Christmas. When it comes to masks, perhaps they've seen the data or listened to former SAGE advisor Dr. Colin Axon, who told me on this programme they are nothing more than a comfort blanket. When it comes to other restrictions, perhaps the public have looked at case rates in Germany, where they have a stricter mask mandate with better masks, COVID passports, and soon to be enforced COVID vaccination. How's it going in Germany? Let's take a look. Oh dear, it doesn't make for good reading. Now, by allegedly holding parties last year, the government took the piss and they revealed themselves. Being told by the government to follow COVID rules now is like Count Dracula telling you to stay away from blood supplies. Now, I would never advocate, and I never will advocate, breaking the law, and any protest must be peaceful and democratic. And all voices and opinions when it comes to COVID will get a platform here at GB News and on this programme. Many disagree with everything I have said, potentially the majority of the British public. And so I hope you're right if you think that all of this damage was worth it. I really do. But you have to ask yourself, where is this all going? And when will it stop? Will it stop at all? I have my doubts. 3 weeks to flatten the curve is now almost 2 years of damaging measures under the coalition from hell. And yet, our per capita COVID death rate is far higher than in many countries that did far less. There's time between now and the next election for other political parties to mobilise around the idea of restoring freedom and reintroducing democratic values into this country. I can write this manifesto now if you like. Here's how it goes, OK? We will never close schools again. We will put the economy first because that's what pays for public health. We will not close once viable businesses. We will not let children suffer for a disease that poses them almost no threat. We will not unilaterally cover your faces with a rancid piece of cloth, and we will keep the NHS open for business. The manifesto continues. It's so easy to write. In any future pandemic, we will protect the vulnerable and let the healthy and those not at serious risk get on with their lives and contribute to the economy, which pays for everything else. We will let people identify the risks of life for themselves. And while you're at it, we will police our borders properly, stand up for the basic facts of human biology, and confirm that, yes, only women have a cervix. And we will properly seize the opportunities that Brexit brings, because there's no point voting for Brexit if the government doesn't deliver it through policy. So that's the manifesto, and I'm sure someone will write it. Whether it's the dangerous idea of vaccine passports or mandates, or whether it's the huge damage from the unprecedented experiment of lockdown, this virus was never bad enough to justify this horror show. No disease justifies the measures we've seen, and societies have never reacted to an illness in this way ever before in human history. And let me tell you, we've had far worse viruses than COVID. A nasty respiratory virus, it is. But the bubonic plague, it ain't. The government appear to have spent last Christmas laughing at us. Well, the joke's on them. Soon these clowns will be consigned to the dustbin of political history. With me reacting to the big stories of the day and looking at tomorrow's newspaper front pages is my amazing panel. Later in the show, it will be Mike Parry, but alongside them, broadcaster and impressionist Francine Lewis and political columnist and social entrepreneur Ali Miraj. Great to have both of you with me. Ali, if I could start with you, what do you think is behind this decision by the government to roll out Plan B measures?
Well, Mark, I was at a dinner the other night, availing myself of a Christmas party, and I took a straw poll around the table, and it seemed to me this was the day that the restrictions were announced, and the feeling really was that this was a distraction tactic by the government to avert attention from all these issues around Christmas parties. Since then, the debate's now moved on to wallpaper gate and all sorts of problems that the government's having, indeed. And also you're going to hear from a Tory MP shortly who's very against these measures. So the Prime Minister's fighting on multiple fronts. And I think on balance, whilst it is a virulent disease and the Prime Minister is clearly worried about the fact that he locked down late last time, he's very sensitive to that criticism. He also wants to learn lessons from before. The timing seems rather suspect to a lot of people. And I think the real issue, Mark, there are three issues for the government now. One is credibility, the second is trust, and the third is public compliance. And when you have story after story coming out over the last few days about these allegations of Christmas parties going on in the Prime Minister's own house, and no response yet, adequate response yet. It's being investigated, as you say, by the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case. It leaves a lot of people scratching their heads. So whilst I do think we need to be cautious and sensible, and the wearing of face masks, for example, is not particularly onerous, I do think working from home is going to have an impact. You can see this already from the Beer and Pub Association, the hospitality industry, already feeling that they're 30% down on where they would have been if this had not been introduced, and they're very, very worried about it. So I think on balance, I think you could argue it was probably a little bit of a strange move.
If you were in Parliament, would you be voting for Plan B measures on Tuesday?
Well, I would want to see a lot more evidence before I voted for Plan B right now. I'm not a lockdown skeptic. I think lockdowns do have a place, even though they are extremely damaging for the economy. And we have to remember that we have $2 trillion of public debt and $400 billion of borrowing as a hangover from the lockdowns last year, and all the impacts on furlough and the impacts on mental health and physical health and kids' education. So I don't take these things lightly. I think on balance at the moment, I just don't think there's enough evidence for it. But you rightly pointed out that in other countries in Europe, particularly Austria, where there is a lockdown in force, in parts of Germany as well, and now talk about mandatory vaccination. And I can tell you, I just came back from Zurich and Berlin in the last few weeks. They are very, very particular about vaccination passports everywhere you go. And I think that's probably where we're going. But I think on balance, if I was in Parliament and had a vote, I wouldn't be voting for Plan B next week.
Francine, what are your thoughts about these new COVID restrictions? The government will argue that they're saving lives, and it's pretty clear that a majority of the public still support these measures.
Well, I agree with everything you said just before. I'm so over it now, absolutely over the whole thing. And I think we have lost trust in the government. You know, they have lost their credibility because of all the things that are going on. You know, I cannot believe that people weren't allowed to be at their parents', grandparents' funerals, see their loved ones. You know, how many people lost work, including myself, you know, last year. All my corporates got cancelled, all the Christmas parties, and they were having a party. It's absolutely horrendous. The mask thing, at first, I was very much always carried my mask everywhere, made sure I had it on. Now I feel a little bit, you know, I mean, I've been double jabbed, so I'm not as nervous. When it first came out, I was terrified. I still worry for my parents, but I'm not worried at all. And I certainly wouldn't be giving my children the vaccine. But I'm so over it all now. And I think that people are not going to take this seriously, even if they do give us another lockdown. I think there's going to be uproar.
Do you think these Plan B measures are an important step forward for public health? Will they save lives? Should it be safety first? Do you back the government? Let me know your thoughts. mark@gbnews.uk. Later in the hour, the Mirror newspaper are calling Boris Johnson a liar. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Well, Does the Prime Minister have an honesty problem, or is he the victim of a press campaign against him? We'll speak to the human lie detector himself, former police officer, body language expert, Darren Stanton. But after this, in The Big Question, I'm going to speak to a Conservative MP that will be voting against Tuesday's government legislation for Plan B measures. Brendan Clark-Smith is next. See you after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Huge reaction on email to my big opinion at the start of the show on Plan B measures. Jonathan says, Mark, brilliant monologue tonight. Agree with every word. It's frightening what's happening and profoundly wrong. Please keep speaking up for so many of us who do not have a voice. Ruth, you are brilliant with your introductions. I agree with every word. I say Mark for Prime Minister. Oh, I'm not sure I could bear that responsibility. But hey, do you know what, Ruth? Never say never, but at the moment I'm far too busy here at GB News, and what a privilege it is to be on Britain's most dynamic and exciting current affairs TV network. Of course, The family is growing. What a fantastic, exciting announcement. The arrival of Eamon Holmes in the new year. So looking forward to that one. The dream team just got bigger, but we couldn't do any of it without you. So tell your friends, spread the word, and let's change the world together. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major burning issue of the day. Tonight, following allegations of illegal parties this time last year, is the government bruised or fatally wounded? To answer this, I'm delighted to welcome a man who has just announced on Twitter that he will be voting against the government's plans to roll out Plan B restrictions in England. The Conservative MP for Bassett Law, the king of the Red Wall Tories, Brendan Clark-Smith, joins me now. Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for inviting me on.
Brendan, thanks very much for joining us. Why will you be voting against the government's COVID measures, the so-called Plan B, on Tuesday? The government would argue they're saving lives.
I think it's about proportionality, Mark. Yeah, we've been through a lot with COVID. We've done things that we'd never normally have expected to do. It was very unpredictable, the virus at the start, whether that came from what we didn't know what to expect, then through all the lockdown measures, and then, of course, the vaccine, and seeing that as our way out, really. And of course, we had Freedom Day when we finally got it, as we called it, and a lot of people very happy about that. And I think we all expected then that we have to remain vigilant, and we're not completely out of the woods. I don't think anybody's arguing that we are yet. But what we also said is with those restrictions, they've got to be justified. And I'm afraid from what I've seen so far, with the Omicron variant, we know very little about it, but so far, a lot of the effect of it seems fairly mild. We've not seen any deaths from it yet. Looking at things like hospitalizations, they're the things that I'd be looking at more than the spread, I think. So for me, I don't think I can, with a straight face, justify that we're ready to go into those restrictions again. And certainly at the time of the year that we're at, I think last year a lot of people had a miserable Christmas. They're looking forward to it this year. A lot of businesses, it's a very, very important time for them as well. And I just think the timing's all wrong.
What do all of those Conservative MPs and Labour MPs that will be voting for these measures know that you don't?
I think people are trying to err on the side of caution, and I think it's natural to do that with what we've had in the last couple of years, Mark. But then I think, again, it's about proportionality. I don't think we can just say that we're going to put these restrictions on people again just in case. It's worse than what we've experienced. I know they're looking at the effect of vaccines. I know that we've had some data that's just come out that's saying that some aren't necessarily that effective. But then, of course, we've had the booster campaign. They're saying that's up to 75% effective against a strain that so far seems relatively mild. And of course, the government have managed to vaccinate, along with the NHS, 22 million people now, which is quite an impressive feat. So vaccines, boosters, very much our way out of this. I think we're doing that. So for me, that's why at the moment I can't justify any extra restrictions.
I've always credited your leader, the Prime Minister, for Freedom Day. There was political pressure and scientific pressure to actually cancel Freedom Day. It was described by the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, as reckless, but cases fell. And there's some argument that possibly the disease spread in the summer months when the NHS was under less pressure. More healthy people got COVID and recovered, or may have been asymptomatic. And certainly England has been the envy of Europe in the last few weeks, Brendan. So why has the Prime Minister changed course in this way? Why has Mr. Freedom Day gone for Mr. Lockdown?
I think that was a really good decision in the summer. And as you've said, in the rest of Europe, I think a lot of what's happening there with lockdowns, with vaccine passports and so on, and really the rates going through the roof in some cases, not vaccinating as many people, we made a good decision there. So that was just so we could take pressure off the NHS coming into this winter. And of course, that was all part of the plan, really. And I think the opposition would have probably still had us in lockdown now, and we'd have never had that Freedom Day. And we've almost kind of been locked into this COVID socialism. I think that there's a bit of a habit with there.
So why is Boris going for COVID socialism now?
I mean, this is the thing about it. We have flu every winter, we have colds and so on. The NHS is always going to be under pressure in that sense. So I think there's a little bit of worry with the new variant. I completely get that. I think at first we said, well, let's wait and see. we've got, we're going to have another week or so before we're going to make a decision on it. Maybe I think we've jumped the gun on that. I think there's a little bit of worry. But again, for me, with what I've seen, there's just not the justification yet.
And why do you think the decision has come at this moment in time? Is it to take attention away from the allegations around illegal lockdown-breaking parties this time last year?
I think, unfortunately, you will have members of the public thinking that there's a link there between the two, and the timing's very, very unfortunate. Of course, this is the last week of Parliament before recess. With something as controversial as restrictions, then there's always going to be a little bit of tension there. And I can see, obviously, we've had a few difficult weeks. We had this, we had the Owen Paterson issue before that as well. So it's not been a great month politically. I'm not going to lie about that. It's incredibly difficult, as you would expect, really, from a government in mid-term. But obviously, from my colleagues, a lot of them want to do the right thing. A lot of the ones, I think, will be supporting the measures, believe they'll be doing the right thing as well. I wouldn't suggest anything else. But on this occasion, and this is the first time for me, Mark, I'm no rebel. I'm very, very supportive of the government, getting Brexit done and trying to tackle illegal immigration and all the levelling up agenda and so on. But I just think on this particular thing, it's time really to say, people have just had enough and just want to get on with their lives now.
They do. Quick word on the parties. Did you go to any of them last year?
I'm obviously not popular enough, Mark. Now, I spent a lot of time at home last year, as a lot of people did, really, with working from home. Of course, we were discouraged very much from going into Westminster unless it was necessary. We had things such as proxy voting. I really don't want to see that again. These 3-minute sort of monologues we were doing on Zoom rather than any real debate. And it's not really working from home. It's not really doing the job the way you'd want to be.
Brendan, do you think the parties happened? Do you think the parties happened? The Times claim up to 7 parties may have occurred.
I mean, there's a grey area here, Mark. I mean, I'll give an example. A lot of us have shared offices. We work very long hours. You have to stay on the estate and in the buildings for quite extended periods of time. And I'm sure some people have a drink when they've finished, as many
wine and cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most of us have got enough common sense to know with the grey areas whether something's a party or not. Has something been organised formally? Are there any people there that wouldn't be there normally? What are the numbers like? Is it sensible? And I think having a drink in your office once you finish work, I think most people will know the difference. But of course, the Prime Minister, the information that he's been given, he said that no rules were broken or so on. Has that information he's been given, has that been reliable? We don't know that. Obviously, the Prime Minister wasn't there. I wasn't there. And he's relied on information given to him by other people. Now, if that's wrong and it subsequently turns out that someone's given the Prime Minister incorrect information, then I'm sure heads will roll.
Brendan Clark-Smith, thank you so much for your time. Wish you a good weekend. Brendan Clark-Smith is the Conservative MP for Bassett Law, who will be voting against the government's plans to roll out Plan B restrictions. That vote is happening in Parliament on Tuesday. Please give your reaction to that interview. Do you think there is a campaign against Boris Johnson in the media? Do you still back Boris? Millions of people voted for Boris. He got Brexit done, of course. And I do think we would have had more restrictions if he wasn't the Prime Minister. But what are your feelings about Boris? After this, we're going to speak to the human lie detector, Darren Stanton, who's an expert on dishonesty, and we'll get a definitive scientific answer about the Prime Minister's relationship with the truth. And I'm delighted to say at 10 o'clock, really excited about my Mark Meets guest. It is Fleet Street legend Mike Parry, broadcaster, journalist, a man responsible for one of the biggest viral videos of all time. We will show it uninterrupted, the Cinnamon Challenge. That's all at 10, so get your questions in now for a legend of broadcasting and newspaper journalism, Mark at gbnews.uk. So much to get through. See you in 2.
You're You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, Boris Johnson was last night accused of lying to a Sleaze probe over the £112,000 refurbishment of his Downing Street flat. The revelation about funding for the makeover, which included 840 quid a roll wallpaper, came as the Cabinet Secretary began investigating a series of alleged lockdown-busting Number 10 parties last year. So is the Prime Minister guilty of dishonesty, or has he simply been the victim of a witch hunt in the press and online? Well, let's get the definitive scientific answer from a good friend of the show, the human lie detector himself, former police officer and now broadcaster and body language expert, Darren Stanton. Hi, Darren.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you again.
Great to have you back on the programme. Let's take a look at the Prime Minister issuing a grovelling apology on Wednesday over that infamous alleged Number 10 Christmas party, but continuing to insist that no such party took place.
Understand and share the anger up and down the country at seeing Number 10 staff seeming to make light of lockdown measures. And I can understand how infuriating it must be to think that the people who have been setting the rules have not been following the rules, Mr. Speaker, because I was also furious to see that clip. And Mr. Speaker, I apologise unreservedly for the offence that it has caused up and down the country, and I apologise for the impression that it gives.
So you are the human lie detector, Darren Stanton. Is the Prime Minister furious? Was he furious in that speech about any alleged parties?
No, in my opinion, because basically it didn't come over as very genuine, because when someone's given a heartfelt apology, there'll be certain gestures that people will make in conjunction with the way they're speaking. So if you and I are talking and, you know, I will gesture in line with what I'm saying to you, why would you need to refer to your notes if that's coming from, you know, your heart, so to speak? So if you're genuinely remorseful or, you know, apologising to the public, I don't see why you would need to keep referring to your notes all the time. And in terms of, you know, he's quite an animated man. I noticed one of the things he does, he plays with his pen quite a lot when he's in mid-flow, and we didn't see any of that. So in my opinion, it was a very disingenuous apology.
Although might he have been looking at his notes because he didn't want to mess up the wording, given that the eyes of the nation were on him?
Well, that was the next thing I was about to say. Yeah, so obviously that was, you know, scripted and prepped. So that's the other side of why he was potentially looking at the notes, to make sure that he did cover all of the bases But in my mind, I think when most people give an apology, they won't need to refer to sort of notes. They'll generally, it will come over a lot more humanistic.
And I suppose even if you are apologising from notes, the way that you deliver that message will be more sincere. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, certainly in terms of vocal tone as well. So people's voices will generally go up and down in tone, whereas Boris, it was fairly sort of stoic, quite static in terms of its pitch. So there's about 3 or 4 things that struck me that it just didn't really come from the heart.
And what about previous Boris outings? I mean, does he show any of those clues of a dishonest person in his general sort of public appearances, or was this a sort of uniquely dodgy appearance?
I think the key thing with Boris is he tends to use what we call distance in behaviour and language. And there's a famous bit of footage when he avoided Piers Morgan when he walked into the fridge, when he said he was going to go on the show and be interviewed. So classic things like just avoiding being in a situation where journalists are going to be able to talk to him, I think, is a key one. And again, just using answering again, it's a classic response, isn't it? But answering a different question to what has been asked. I mean, I noticed this week, for example, there's been quite a few ministers have done interviews, and they seem to have just gone back to the default setting of going on about COVID and the numbers. And it's like, well, you weren't asked that. You were asked quite a direct question, and they've all sidestepped the issue this week, I think.
Although he is a very animated performer and, of course, still loved by many millions that voted for him, a lot of people have not given up on Boris, and they're quite upset to see him attacked in this way. I mean, has he still got the vim and vigour? What's your appraisal of his mental well-being at the moment, based upon recent appearances?
Yeah, I think he's looking quite tired. I think he's looking quite haggard at the moment. I think obviously he's under a lot of pressure. He's just had a baby, So I think for any person, at the end of the day, he's just a man, isn't he? He's the same as everybody else. So I think he's juggling quite a lot of balls, really, quite a lot of life events. But even so, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things sort of develop, especially with the vote coming on Tuesday, how sort of his response is to that. But generally, I think he is looking quite tired, in my opinion, really.
Does his body language vary from appearance to appearance?
Yeah, again, when he's obviously doing sort of walkabouts, things like that, he's very animated, he'll be talking to people. But one thing I notice about Boris, when he gets stressed, because he's so focused on basically making sure you get that information, or the media get that information, a lot of the animation tends to withdraw inwards. And that's, again, a sort of a classic red flag that sometimes, a person is not completely confident, or they're not believing what they're delivering wholeheartedly. So it means that the person is so focused on delivering the sort of verbal aspect of the message that the brain is so focused it forgets to be itself, if that makes sense. So somebody that's generally quite animated will withdraw, as we have seen in certain contexts with Boris, like in Parliament.
Well, let's take a look now, Darren, at the now infamous video inside the Downing Street television briefing room, where Allegra Stratton, the then Downing Street press secretary, is questioned about an alleged party last Christmas at Downing Street. Shortly after this was leaked, she resigned from her role in the government. Here it is.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not. Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
I understand the anger and frustration that people feel. To all of you who lost loved ones, who endured intolerable loneliness, and who struggled with your businesses, I am truly sorry. And this afternoon, I am offering my resignation to the Prime Minister. Thanks for your time.
Well, let's start with the apology that we just heard there. That seemed pretty sincere, pretty genuine. The tears would demonstrate that, Darren.
That's the difference between an apology and not. Again, we didn't expect Boris to cry, but that was generally from the heart. We can see lots of emotion, genuine tears. What she's saying is being backed up by a lot of non-verbal communication. So, yeah, I think the apology was genuinely very, very heartfelt.
And what about that video in which they were rehearsing at the Downing Street press conference stage in the studio there at Number 10? What did you make of that scene? Do you think she betrayed the fact that there had been a party? You are a former police officer as well as a body language expert. What do you think? Are the government bang to rights based upon what you saw?
I think with her body language, that was completely... I mean, what I'm looking for is congruency. So basically...
What's that?
If I'm saying that I'm happy to answer your question, Mark, and then I sort of flash an expression of fear, clearly, I'm masking that emotion. But with Allegra in that rehearsal, her body language was all consistent with what she was saying. So I believe... that what she believes. I believe she believed there was a party. So I think, yes, she was being open and honest when she was saying that, and obviously not realising that it was being recorded.
So are you suggesting? And of course, we'll probably never get to the truth on this one. But from what you've seen, she was effectively admitting that there had been a party. Would that be your reading of it as an expert on body language?
Yeah, totally.
Right. Because I guess it was nervous laughter, the acknowledgement that something wrong had occurred.
Yeah, but again, in terms of, I say, the thing called micro-expressions and all of her other body language, even though they were having a bit of a laugh, when she said it wasn't socially distanced, I think they were having a genuine conversation because, again, she didn't realise that it was being recorded. So I think everything the way that she came over tells me that there was an alleged get-together, an alleged party.
Now, is the Prime Minister a victim of his own impetuous personality, such a sort of natural performer that he actually can't disguise if he's uncomfortable or if he's being economic with the truth? Doesn't that have a certain authenticity and charm that the British public love? Because I'm imagining that far worse than having the Prime Minister would be someone in charge that's really good at lying.
I think essentially, even when he was mayor, he's always been this larger-than-life character, hasn't he? He's always been this sort of... he's done a lot of shows like, Have I Got News For You, things like that. So He's always been this sort of caricature of himself almost. So I think that's potentially why he has had these various opportunities and it's kind of had this longevity. So I think, yes, I'd agree with you that he has got this charisma, but I think certainly at the moment with regards to, we don't know how this inquiry is going to go and with the alleged parties and whatnot, but I think if it comes to light that, there is conclusive proof that members of Parliament or people at Number 10 have contravened COVID rules whilst people were literally dying, then I think his lives may have run out.
Oh, my goodness, a fascinating analysis. Darren, do join us again soon. Really brilliant to have you on the show. You can be found on Twitter. You're a keynote speaker, broadcaster, security expert, and much, much more. And you seem to have worked the Prime Minister out as well. You got him banged to rights. Darren, thanks so much for joining us. Now, the Cambridges have issued their Christmas card. It's a lovely photo of the whole family. But as far as I'm concerned, you are the real royalty, and I'm not looking at notes like the Prime Minister. It comes from the heart. So we decided to have some fun today and ask you to send in your festive family pictures. So let's have a look. We've got this. This is Pippa's pup celebrating her first Christmas, sent in by Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much. Oh, we love that doggy. We love the tree. We love the antlers as well. And how about this? Rob has sent in a lovely snap of Louis, his grandson, and Doogie, the grand dog who brightens the world. They are a pair of smashers. Love both of them. Thank you. Do keep your Christmas family snaps coming in. It could be by the tree. It could be slumped over the dining table over the turkey last year. Whatever you've got, send it to mark@gbnews.uk. Really excited about Mark Meets. We're going to speak to Fleet Street legend Mike Parry. He's live at 10, so get your questions in right now. mark@gbnews.uk. And also in FAQs, why is giving to charitable causes the perfect Christmas gift solution? So we'll discuss all of that, plus my amazing panel and tomorrow's front pages. First up, the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
It is exactly 10 o'clock. So much to come. Fleet Street legend and co-founder of Talk Sport Radio, Mike Parry, is going to be joining us for Mark Meets. He is, of course, former head of press for the Football Association as well. He's got a story to tell, let me tell you. Plus, my amazing panel reacting to the big stories of the day and tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Will we ever beat knife crime? Following government aid Allegra Stratton's waterworks, is it ever acceptable to cry in the workplace? And it's all going horribly wrong for Joe Biden. We're going to speak to Donald Trump's former top aide at 11. And we've got a great British game show coming up as well. A fun game based around a news story of the day. Tonight's game is called Family Misfortunes. Find out why at 11:45. We've also got more of your family Christmas snaps coming up. Get them over to Mark at gbnews.uk. A packed 2 hours to come. Mike Parry's here in 2 minutes, but first up, the headlines with Karen Roberts.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The UK Health Security Agency says the Omicron variant is expected to be the dominant coronavirus strain by mid-December, with over 1 million cases if the current trend continues. Analysis showed that the first two vaccinations of AstraZeneca and Pfizer gave much lower protection against Omicron than other vaccines. However, the health agency said that initial data showed the booster jab provides around 70 to 75% protection against symptomatic infection. Care home residents will only be allowed 3 people to visit this winter. As part of the government's new care home guidance, each resident will also have 1 essential caregiver. The Department of Health and Social Care said the move was in order to balance the current COVID-19 risk with the need to keep people safe. Staff testing will also be increased from 2 lateral flow tests per week to 3, alongside a weekly PCR test. The independent body responsible for handling complaints against the police is considering reopening the investigation into serial killer Stephen Port. An inquest found officers in East London missed opportunities to catch port, and mistakes probably contributed to the murders of 4 young gay men. He's serving a whole life sentence that began in 2016. One of the victims' mothers says the deaths could have been avoided if the police hadn't made errors.
It is the fact that it was just basic policing that wasn't done in the very first place. Had that been done, the other 3 lads wouldn't have died. Plain and simple as that. If they'd have done the basics of policing and, you know, push Port more instead of just accepting everything he said, the other 3 lads would never have died.
A paedophile operating online has been jailed for 32 years after blackmailing nearly 2,000 victims. Abdul Elahi posed as a banker and targeted people across the world. He amassed images of child sexual abuse to sell on to other paedophiles. The 26-year-old was ordered to register as a sex offender for life after admitting 158 charges committed against 72 complainants. Birmingham Crown Court described his offending as being in a league of its own. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is a step closer to being extradited from the UK following a win by the US government in the High Court. Judges overturned a previous ruling that he shouldn't be sent to the US because of a risk of suicide. He's wanted on allegations of a conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defence information after hundreds of thousands of leaked documents on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were published. His fiancée says they will appeal the decision. You are right up to date now. Back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of sport, showbiz, journalism and beyond. I also speak to people who simply have a big story to tell. Well, tonight, Fleet Street legend Mike Parry joins me. Born in Chester, Mike attended the revered King's School Chester and completed his studies at what is now Nottingham Trent University. I'm sure there's a bust of him somewhere at the college.
Yes.
After graduating, Mike Parry quickly, well, he likes a bit of bust. He showed a nose for a good story. He showed a talent for writing and a gift for persistence, which took him all the way to Fleet Street and the Sun newspaper, the Daily Express and the Press Association, among other titles. He's worked in the UK, the States and elsewhere and went on to become the head of press at the Football Association during a turbulent time in its history. Mike Parry has written 3 books. One, a biography of Wayne Rooney called Rooney Tunes. He is, of course, a lifelong Evertonian, a toffee to the core. And he's written 2 books about his pal, TalkSport presenter and former Scotland international Alan Brazil. Mike co-founded TalkSport Radio in the early 2000s with Kelvin Mackenzie, where he became a fixture both on air and off. Mike is now a regular on our TV screens, including, I'm delighted to say, GBNews. In 2004, Mike suffered heart failure and in the same year was diagnosed with advanced dilated cardiomyopathy. He was placed on the transplant list. In April 2005, due to a combination of drug treatments and a radical change to his lifestyle, Mike lost 4 stone in 6 months and is now the picture of health. And I'm delighted to say that this legend of broadcasting journalism and print journalism, Mike Parry, joins me in the studio. Hi, Mike.
Very good evening, and thank you very much indeed for such a wonderful build-up. It's very gracious of you.
Well, it's been quite the career, and of course it continues apace.
Mm-hmm.
What still drives you?
What still drives me is that I enjoy the job. You alluded there to Trent Polytechnic, which of course now is, I call it now the University of the Trent, obviously.
Yeah.
Only did a year there.
I didn't mention the poly bit.
No.
Trying to big you up a bit.
Thank you very much indeed.
Look, actually, polytechnics weren't actually bad.
I wish we still had them, because then we'd have more bricklayers and plumbers and carpenters, because that's what they did. They did technical courses, but somebody in between decided to turn them all into universities, you know. But no, you're absolutely absolutely right. It just wasn't for me. I'd always wanted to be a journalist ever since I started writing pieces for the school magazine at the King's School, Chester, and I thought that would be a thrill. I was so blinking lucky, I decided to opt out of Trent, went back to Chester. I walked into the Chester Chronicle office, the weekly newspaper, and it's a paper that we'd had in our house all my life, you know, every
An
Friday.
iconic title in the Parry household. Of course, in the region, this is when local journalism was massive. And tens, hundreds of thousands of copies sold a week.
Absolutely. The local weekly newspaper was staple for everybody in the town because that's where you found out what was going on. And that's when your kid was in the Christmas play, you get a picture of it in the Chester Chronicle, you know. That's what it was all about. But I went into the office. The editor was a guy called Herbert Hughes, who was about like 68 or 69 and had spent a life drinking lots of whiskey and wine and all that kind of stuff. And I walked in and told him I wanted to be a journalist, I wanted to be a reporter. And he was opening his mail like this. And he said, no chance at all, come back and see me next year. We have 4 trainees a year who we send to Newcastle to the training centre, and it's all full. And as I'm sort of leaving his office thinking, what should I do next? He suddenly said, oh, hang on. And he'd opened a letter from one of the 4 who'd pulled out and decided to go to university instead. And he opened a drawer and he had about like 300 or 400 applications. He said, I can't be bothered with that, you can do it. Report here on Tuesday with your suitcase, you're going to Newcastle. Bang, and that was it. I mean, what a stroke of luck, you know?
Stroke of luck, but an opportunity, you took it with both hands.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you think you've got a personality that suits journalism? Are you naturally curious?
Yes, I'm naturally curious. I like working, and journalism's very hard work. Look at what you do in terms of preparing for your shows each day, you know, to get it right and all that. But basically, I wanted a life of adventure. I wanted a life of adventure, and I thought, put that together. All my life, since the age of about 11 or 12, I'd been a newspaper boy, and I used to deliver newspapers, and I loved getting ink on my fingers. I loved the smell of the newsprint. I used to take the papers home and read all the back pages about Everton Football Club, OK? I was immediately in love with newspapers and the fascination of what was in them and all that kind of stuff. So newsprint was like an aphrodisiac for me, if you know what I mean. I wanted to be closer to that. And at the Chester Chronicle, it was an old-fashioned office, and every Thursday night at about 9:30, we'd get back from the pub into the building just so we'd hear that massive rumble as the presses started.
Amazing.
To run off tomorrow morning's Chester Chronicle, and we got the first one off the press, and then we went back to the pub and found out how many stories we'd each got in the paper that week, you know what I mean? It was so thrilling.
And to have your byline in the paper.
Unbelievable.
Your name is up in lights.
Yeah.
And local journalism was massive.
Massive.
And these papers were big businesses. They made a lot of money.
Oh, they made huge money. The Chester Chronicle in those days was owned by Thompson Regional Newspapers. They've been bought over by other people now. But I realised the power of journalism and wanting an adventure in life from the moment a new nightclub opened in Chester called the King's Disco, right? And I thought, well, I'll get along there. So I found the manager, you know, I'm Mike Parry, Chester Chronicle. Mr. Parry, you're welcome here any time, you know, because I worked on the local paper and I'd get a picture a week in a paper. So can you imagine when I when I met a new young lady, OK? And you'd be in the pub and all that. I said, listen, do you like discos? Yeah, come on, let's go down the King's Disco. She said, I can't be bothered. I've just passed it half an hour ago. The queue's a mile long to get in. I said, no, it's not for us, honestly. And I would walk her back there. We'd walk past all of the queue, right to the front door, knock on the door, and they'd open the little... Mr. Parry from the Chronicle, come in. I thought, wow, you know, this is...
I could get used to this.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it.
And what about the quality of... I mean, a nose for a story, naturally curious, brackets a bit nosy. I think all journalists have to be slightly nosy,
yes, you do.
Don't they?
Yeah.
A people person. What about persistence? Because you clearly had something about you when you encountered that editor and you didn't take no for an answer. So how important is being dogged, is being persistent?
You've got to be extremely dogged. You've got to never take no for an answer. and look at the current phase of stories we're in at the moment with parties in Downing Street and all that.
Yeah.
It's amazing it's taken a year to come out, but eventually, some top journalist, I think it's the political editor of the Daily Mirror, has got an answer. Well, she hasn't got an answer. She's found out from people who were there and all that kind of stuff. It is that persistent doggedness. I totally agree. When I was working on the Express in London one time, Prince Andrew had suddenly come back from the Falklands, got a new girlfriend.
And he was a bit of a hero at the time.
He was a huge hero. He got off the boat with a rose between his teeth, threw his hat in the air. He was a pilot in the Royal Navy.
Randy Andy,
and his girlfriend was Koo Stark, a soft porn actress, OK? I was told, this is when I was on the Daily Express in London, I was told by the news editor, Parry, come here. Yeah, right. You're out the office for 2 weeks. What? You find Koo Stark and don't come back until you have found her. And if I find her on the front page of another newspaper in Fleet Street before you get her, that's the end of your Fleet Street career. Do you understand me? Right, OK, thank you. I was assigned a photographer and we spent the next 14 days trying to track her down and we found her first. I had to find her first.
Yeah.
My career was on the line. And I spent nights till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning searching addresses in London.
And it's like being a detective.
It's like being a detective. The work a journalist does and the work that a detective from CID does is very, very similar in investigating. I got one great break while I was doing the story. She stayed for a while in a flat in Eaton Square, which, of course, is a top address. And I went around all the houses in Eaton Square until I found a woman who was a Spanish cleaner who said that, yes, I remember her. I said, really? She said, yes. He said, in fact, I remember that they were in the basement flat of the house next door and they were filming videos. So in those days, we didn't have phones or anything, but if you were rich, you could get a little camera, and film a video, which went onto a tape and all that kind of stuff. I said, is that right? So, of course, my imagination went wild. And I then produced a story saying that the reason that the police were so desperate to find Koo Stark, find Prince Andrew, they think that compromising videos had been taken of the two together and they had to be traced down. So that's a story I got in the middle. Yeah. But then a week later, we staked out another house for the third or fourth night and a motorbike turned up at 2 a.m. and it stopped and a person got off the back of the bike. And it was a small person. And it was more likely a woman, although she had leathers on and all this.
Of course.
The photographer I was with, Keith, said, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't get out of there. And as she got off the bike and turned round, Keith stood up from behind the wall behind which we were hiding and went bang with a massive flash on his long lens. Well, it was a long lens camera, but it was quite close.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we had until we got back to the office and the flash had gone straight through the visor, and it was Koo Stark's face. We got her. We found her. And we found her first.
Remarkable exclusive. And you've actually broken some major global news stories.
I have, yes.
You?
Yes.
Diana?
I revealed to the world the fact that Diana, Princess of Wales, was dead. I was then the executive editor of the Press Association, OK? I was in one of
the most respected news agencies in the world.
It is the most respected national news agency in the world. I mean, a lot of the others like Reuters, UPI, they're international news agencies, but as a domestic news agency, without a shadow of a doubt, the Press Association is the main one. And the reason I'd gone there was because I'd done 6 years in Fleet Street. I'd kind of fallen out with my editor at the Express, Sir Nicholas Lloyd. Great guy and all that, but he wanted to move on. And 6 years as a news editor of a national newspaper is very, very tiring.
Yeah, and you'd done a stint in the States for the Express and in London.
Yes, I had, yeah.
So you did your time.
Oh, I did my time on the ground, and I became news editor of the Express for about 6 years. And then I got an opportunity at the Press Association to kind of revolutionise it, because in those days they only reported on royal stories or military stories or something like that. And so I had to tabloidise it, for want of a better word. But this particular Saturday night, to cut it short, I'm watching Match of the Day, and the guy who is looking after the news desk on a Saturday rings me at home and tells me that there's been a car crash in Paris, Dodi Fayed has died, Diana has been taken to hospital. And, it goes down your spine. My God, what could have happened here? Got a car ordered immediately, got into the office. It was the early days of mobile phones. But fortunately, my defence correspondent, Charlie Miller, was in Manila with Robin Cook, the then Foreign Secretary. And we rang and rang and rang and eventually got through. And I said, Charlie, explain to him what had happened. He said, no, I had no idea. He said, but it makes sense. I said, why? He said, we were in our plane about to take off from Manila to go to the next port of call in the Far East, where the Foreign Secretary was travelling. And the plane was called back as it was halfway down the runway and went back on the apron. And I said, something very serious has happened. Go and find Robin Cook. I said, I've got a feeling Diana could be dead. And Charlie said, my God, and all this. He goes off. 20 minutes later, Charlie rings me and he says, Mike, I don't know where you got it from, but you're right. I said, is Diana dead? He said, she's dead.
Because the Foreign Secretary would have been told.
Well, the way international diplomacy works is that if a member of the royal family dies on foreign soil, it has to be commuted between foreign secretaries, not the head of state.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works. So Robin Cook knew even before Tony Blair and even before the Queen, because that's the way the French do it. So I've then got this dilemma on my hands. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and the editor-in-chief of the Press Association would not have let me put that out had I rang him at home and told him, because he's head of an establishment organisation called the Press Association. So I didn't. I typed out a note saying, Diana, Princess of Wales, has died this evening. The Press Association have established from government sources. And the first guy I asked to put it out wouldn't do it.
Yeah. He
worked for me at the Press. I said, oh, no, I understand, because his career would have gone.
He knew the implications, that's right.
His career would have gone had it been wrong. Second guy I asked, he said, yeah, OK, Mike, are you absolutely sure? I said, I couldn't be more sure. Charlie Miller, one of the finest, you know, he defence correspondent.
It still took some courage from you to just press that button.
I didn't even think twice about it. I thought, right, it's got to put it out. So it went out, and then the world exploded. We were inundated with calls. We were being accused of being reckless, irresponsible. Yeah. How can you possibly say there's no official announcement? And 17 minutes later, Mr. Chevaunement, the Foreign Secretary of France, came out of the Élysée Palace, and read out the statement. That was the longest 17 minutes of my life, and my journalistic career had just been saved.
And listen, we could do 2-3 hours, frankly. You obviously covered Diana's death. 7 hours in the studio in 2001, 9/11, relaying the unfolding 9/11 attack. You were the co-founder of TalkSport, which has gone on to become a huge success.
Absolutely.
Which is an amazing thing. Broadcasting, well, what is your greatest love? Is it being on the radio and TV, or is it print journalism?
It's got to be broadcasting now, because print journalism is 8 hours behind what you want to do. So in the old days, believe it or not, when they used to have what's called wet lead, and that was when papers were produced on live running presses, OK, you could take a story in at 3 a.m. in the morning and have it out on the streets by 4 a.m. These days, last deadline for a story for tomorrow morning, probably 8:30 at night. That's why sometimes you don't even get football match reports if the game's gone to extra time or something like that. So you're always in a delay. The wonderful thing about broadcasting, when I first got into it, and I got invited to join the people who had bought Talk Radio initially 22 years ago and then turned it to Talk Sport, the minute I realised, hang on, I've just produced a journalistic nugget, but it's already gone out to 1.3 million people who've just heard it. They're not going to have to wait till tomorrow morning to read what I found out. It was a revelation. It was a new era.
Well, that's right. You teamed up with your former editor at The Sun, Kelvin McKenzie, who's an extremely clever and talented guy, and that's gone on to become a great success. You were part of that because you were programme director and also co-host of the iconic breakfast show with Alan Brazil. You got the nickname Mike Porky Parry as a result.
I did, actually.
An amazing, successful live show and podcast with the brilliant Mike Graham.
Yes.
The two mics. Sold out the O2.
Absolutely, sold out the O2.
Basically, the show was amazing. The two of you would essentially drink wine and tell stories.
That would be the stage show. We got on stage,
that was the format.
A couple of bottles there, and then we tell all the old stories and all that kind of stuff, you know, which was marvellous. Getting back to Al, I mean, for 6 years, I got up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, 6 days a week, because we did it Monday through Saturday, and did, you know, first of all, put the breakfast show together, then presented it, because Al used to stroll in at 2 minutes to 6. You know, we were on air at 6 o'clock. If you were lucky. It was often 5 past or 10 past 6. You're absolutely right. And then at 10 o'clock, when it was all over, you know, and I was like drained and all that, Al would stroll off to the wine bar next door, where he might stay for another 2 or 3 hours. I then had to get going on the rest of the show. Just to make it clear, as you very kindly called me the co-founder of TalkSport, Mr. Mackenzie came up with the idea. He wanted to change it. You can call him the founder.
It was his brainchild.
It was his brainchild, because otherwise we would have been just another radio station up against the BBC and 5 Live. What I did was I brought all the tabloid instincts within my journalistic experience into radio. For instance, nobody had ever thought about inviting in the great soccer writers of the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph to come and sit in the studio and talk about it. Nobody had ever thought about that, right? Yeah. Nobody had ever thought about singing on air, you know, and people like The Cause. You remember The Cause, that great Irish
brilliant
group?
band, yeah.
And I can't remember which of the girls it was, but she came in...
Andrea?
I think it might have been Andrea. She came in because she had a new record out. Yeah. And I said, can you bring your violin? And she brought a violin, and I sang Danny Boy as she played, oh, Danny Boy, the pipes. Honestly, another guy who came in, remember, so I was working in America when that great film Ghostbusters was at its peak, you know, in the mid-'80s and all that. So, all of a sudden...
Oh, Dan Aykroyd turned up, right?
No, it wasn't Dan Aykroyd. It was the bloke who wrote the Ghostbusters theme. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters, right? Was it B.J. O'Neill or somebody?
No, it was something Parker Jr.
So Parker Jr., that's right, yeah.
Ray Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr., thank you very much indeed. So he comes in, I end up singing, you know, when there's something wrong in your neighbourhood, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters!
Just unbelievable. I mean, so many stories. And, of course, you know, we haven't had time to mention you were head of communications at the Football Association.
Yes.
At a really interesting time, actually a successful time, really, for the FA, under the management of Terry Venables.
Yep.
And the leadership of Graham Kelly, you know, another career diversion. Well, look, I can't wait to find out what's next.
Sure.
You are a viral sensation as well. You're responsible for one of the early big viral videos.
Yes.
I'm delighted to say my producer, Caroline, has unearthed this absolute peach of a video. You took part in the viral Cinnamon Challenge. Many people on social media have said that this clip still lives in their head rent-free. Now, folks, stop what you're doing at home. Seriously. I want everybody in the living room to be silent. Please watch this uninterrupted. You're going to love it.
This is a tablespoonful of cinnamon. Now, somebody's tried to tell me that putting a full spoonful, and this is not a full spoonful, it's a tablespoonful of cinnamon in your mouth at once is impossible. And I've seen all these younger people than me who's shoving this stuff in their mouth and then they're all over the place because they can't take it. Well, believe me, I've faced worse than tablespoonfuls of cinnamon during my life. People have thrown things at me all my life, and all my life I've head-butted them away or taken the challenge. I'm going to take the challenge now. This is one of the fullest tablespoonfuls of cinnamon I've seen in the various challenges that I've seen recorded. Mine's going to be the best of all, and I bet you I won't even balk, OK? I won't even balk because I've been trained to take pain, OK? I've taken pain all my life. Here we go. I'm told there should be an explosive reaction. There won't be from me. I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1.
And 300 million views later, it remains an absolute classic. I've been so excited to have Mike Parry in the studio. I love having him on the panel. I've been determined to do a Mark Meets with Mike for so long. As I said earlier, we could have done 2 hours. But the great news is that Mike is staying to be part of our panel. And, of course, his opinions are always worth hearing. Broadcaster, journalist, and viral icon, Mike Parry. Brilliant stuff. Well, look, lots to come in the news agenda with Mike and the rest of my panel. Are we too soft on knife crime? I'll tackle that in the news agenda. And also, coming up next, why is giving to charitable causes the best kind of gift you can give this Christmas? Lots to come. We're going to speak to Donald Trump's right-hand man after 11. Joe Biden in crisis. Can he even survive until the next election? We'll discuss that. Plus, more of your family Christmas snaps, please. Mark at gbnews.uk. First up, the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, most areas enjoyed a bright but cold day on Friday, but all changed through this weekend as it turns milder, but we'll see some rain at times as well and turning very windy across the far northwest on Sunday evening. So if we look at the pressure pattern then, you can see a bit of a ridge of high pressure across the UK on Friday. That was what's brought those bright conditions, but this weather front is spreading its way in from the Atlantic, and that's what brings some rain across all areas through Saturday. So back to Friday evening and overnight, then a lot of places will be dry, some clear spells as well. A few showers across western parts of England and Wales, tending to fade through the night. One or two mist and fog patches in the east as well. But cloud will thicken in the west as we see rain spreading in across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the night. Some of that could be quite heavy. Turning milder as that cloud spreads in from the west, but another cold night to come further towards the east. So it's a bright start to the day across the east, quite cold as I said, but cloud will thicken through the morning here as we see rain spreading in across the whole of Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of Wales as well, and some of that rain could be quite heavy as well, so quite a wet picture through the afternoon. The rain lighter, more patchier across southern parts, and not reaching the far southeast until later on in the day. Across the east it will be chilly once again, but further towards the west those temperatures will be higher than recent days with top temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. A wet spell of weather then across southeastern areas through Saturday evening and overnight, and for much of the night across England and Wales it will be cloudy, further outbreaks of rain, that rain heavy for a time across northwest England, parts of Wales as well. A different picture though across much of Scotland. Here it will be drier, a few showers, blustery showers in that keen breeze, but it will be chilly under those clear spells as well. Temperatures drop into single figures, but a milder night to come for much of England and Wales. So as we get started then on Sunday morning, most places will be off to a cloudy start. There'll be some further outbreaks of rain or drizzle across many northern and western parts, but some brightness, particularly across Scotland first thing and to the east of any high ground. But rain will turn heavier and more persistent through the afternoon. And that sets the scene then for a very windy spell of weather across western Scotland through Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning, with a warning already in force for that. I'll see you soon.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
$100.
Big reaction to
That's the way it
tonight's
is.
big opinion piece at the start of the show. If you missed it, you can go to Twitter. My brilliant colleague George in our digital team has crafted it into a 9-minute, 47-second piece into a video there at GB News. Do check it out. I'd love to know your thoughts. Now, before we find out why philanthropy is the best gift this Christmas, let's have a look at some more of your fantastic festive family pics. This is Hasu Patel and her wonderful grandchildren tucking into a festive dinner. What a gorgeous family. Merry Christmas to you, Hasu. Oh, well, you've got them in the mirror as well. You see everybody there, the entire family. I'm glad everyone's fully clothed. That could have been quite embarrassing. This is the Scottish Terrier Robert the Bruce in a Santa hat, sent in by Higgs. Oh, an absolute beauty. We love that doggy and we love the hat. Is he on a chair? I hope he hasn't soiled it. Now, do keep your Christmas snaps coming in, your family snaps. We're doing this because the Cambridges have released their Christmas card this year, but to me, you are the real royalty. So send in your family photos, friends as well, anything a bit Christmassy to put us in a bit of Christmas cheer. It's time now for Frequently Asked Questions, in which we take a deep dive into a specific topic in or around the news. And tonight, perhaps you're wondering what to give your loved ones over the festive period by way of a gift. Well, according to my next guest, the best thing you can do is make a donation to a charitable cause. This is the brainchild of renowned author and world-class philanthropist Jean Shafiroff, who joins me now live from Manhattan in New York City. Hello, Jean.
Hi, Mark, and it's so nice to be on your show. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a privilege to have such a renowned philanthropist on the programme. Have you always been of a generous nature?
Well, I was raised by nuns, and 12 years of Catholic school taught me the importance of giving back. And then my father was a school teacher, and he really cared about the students. And I think my background certainly helped, because the nuns taught us, even if we gave something very small, whatever it was very important. And that's one of the important things about philanthropy is together, all the small, tiny gifts really mount up and make a huge difference. So I say to people, open up your hearts, open up your wallets, and you can make a difference. Follow your passions. And this Christmas, this holiday season, give yourself a gift by giving to somebody else.
So might that involve an arrangement with family members to say, look, to your brothers or sisters or anyone else, look, why don't we not give each other gifts? Because we've got enough socks and woolly jumpers, and let's all just nominate a gift that goes to a deserving cause.
I like that, and I think that's very important. However, with children, I think it's still important to have toys and clothing under the tree. But with people that have enough of everything, the right thing really to do is think about someone who doesn't have a lot of anything. And right now, across the world, people are suffering from food insecurity. And why is that? Well, we're coming through a pandemic. Hopefully, we're seeing the light of day right now. And food insecurity remains one of our top problems. And we have a situation where in the United States, at one point, we had 38 million people out of work. Many of them are back in work, but many people still, they've lost their jobs, they've lost their livelihood. And that's across the board around the world. And we also have a situation where food prices are going way up. Fuel prices are going up, inflation is up, and there's a lot of suffering. So if you really want to feel good about you and what you do, well, you open up your hearts and your wallets and you do something for people that don't have food. And I can't think of anything worse. I'm a mother, I have 2 daughters, than to see a situation where moms and dads don't have food for their children. And children's brains develop with protein. And if there's not enough protein in the body, you're not consuming enough protein, well, then the brains of children are not going to develop. And we don't want that happening.
And Jean, what if your finances don't stretch towards being generous? Many people watching this programme will have been through financial hell in the course of the pandemic. Here in the UK, we've seen the biggest recession in 300 years. I'm sure it's on a similar scale in the United States. So how can those who have had a hard time financially give to others at this time?
I wrote a book on philanthropy called Successful Philanthropy, How to Make a Life by What You Give. And in that book, I say that anyone can be a philanthropist. If you don't have the money, well, you can donate your time and knowledge. And it may not be many hours a week. It might be 1 hour a week, or it may be 2 hours a month, but you can do something to help someone and you become an acting philanthropist. And that's really a beautiful thing. And never underestimate the value of who you are and what you can give. And sometimes just even reading a story to a blind person, well, it could make their week. Or doing something for foster children. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a very small thing. Another thing I love to tell people is philanthropy and the act of giving really has to be taught. And how do we teach our children to be givers? Well, we teach them first to share and to be kind. And those two things are really very, very simple. So children can share their toys, they can be kind, and that's easy. And then adults have to do the same. So we have to be good role models for our children.
Jean,
and in
how
the
can
you have the royal family, and they do a tremendous amount of good for so many groups. And if you want to get involved in a charity and you don't know which one, well, in the United States, we have different groups that rate them: GuideStar, Charity Navigator, and the Better Business Bureau. But if you don't know where to begin, follow your passions, and then where you think there's a great need, and then get on the computer, read periodicals, listen to the news, and find out what are the good charities. And of course, a good charity means they have low overhead. They're not spending a lot of money to raise money, and they're just doing a good job. But you can also talk to different people and follow good leaders.
Jean, how can my viewers find out more about what you do?
I host a TV show, and some of the people that I interview to promote what they do, Successful Philanthropy, it's on YouTube, Jean Shafferoff, Successful Philanthropy. They can, of course, get my book on Amazon and look me up. You can even email me if you want. And I get a lot of requests for funding, and unfortunately I can't give to everybody because I'm not the richest, but I do the best that I can. I serve on 9 charity boards, and I believe that when you give, you get. And so I'm very, very happy to be of any help to anyone that I can, maybe by giving some information. And my website or my email is jeanlshaf@gmail.com.
Well, listen, you've given your email, you've given your time, you've given us so much. A really inspiring message for Christmas, Jean, and a welcome counterbalance to the increasing materialism of our age. Your book is called Successful Philanthropy, How to Make a Life by What You Give. It's out now. And my profound thanks to you, and may I wish you and your family and loved ones a Merry Christmas. There you go, renowned philanthropist and author Jean Shafferoff. Brilliant stuff. Well, coming up, we're going to speak to Donald Trump's right-hand man. We're going back to the United States to speak to Jason Miller, the founder of the social media platform Getter. Is Joe Biden in trouble? Will he make it to the next election? How much of a kicking will he get in the midterms next year? We'll discuss a crisis in American politics very shortly. But after Allegra Stratton's resignation waterworks this week, I'll be asking my panel if it's ever okay to cry at work. Have you cried at work? Mark at gbnews.uk, and keep those family Christmas snaps coming. See you shortly.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Well, I'm really delighted to have my panel now reacting to the big stories of the day. But first, let's have a look at some more of your Christmas pictures. Folks, if you could zip me along a little bit, please, because my clicker is elsewhere. This, of course, we're doing this because we've asked for your Christmas pictures for a simple reason, which is that the Sussexes, not the Sussexes, the Cambridges have published a photo of their family. Let's go back. You roll back a little bit for me. Going back in time. I believe this is, let's have a look who we've got here. Very excited. Yes, this is Hamish's granddaughter Darcy and grandson Spencer with their first Advent calendar. Oh my God, that is an absolute classic. Adore that. Look at those two lovely children. Congratulations. Keep those photos coming. We're getting so many now. Really appreciate that. It's putting everyone in a Christmassy mood. Well, reacting to the big stories of the day, my panel, including political columnist and social entrepreneur Ali Miraj, broadcaster and impressionist and comedian Francine Lewis, and as you discovered in my Mark Meets segment, Fleet Street and broadcasting legend Mike Parry, who of course has stayed with us to tackle some of the big stories of the day. Now, this is a really tough topic to discuss, but it's one we need to. It's a national emergency. Have we gone too soft on the horrific knife crime epidemic that continues to plague our cities? Almost half of all repeat knife crime offenders avoided jail last year, despite the government implementing a 2 strikes and you're out pledge. Figures published by the Ministry of Justice reveal that 44% of repeat knife crime offenders were given non-custodial sentences last year. Judges have the power to sentence reoffenders to a 6-month minimum sentence, but can lower the term if there are mitigating circumstances. The Ministry of Justice said the government's police crime sentencing and courts bill would make jail time more likely. But is it time we got really seriously tough on those who commit knife crime? Are we too soft on crime in general? Francine, what's your view on this?
We're way too soft. I mean, I have a son who's 15. I've got a son and a daughter. And I remember when Brooke was 15, I wasn't as nervous as I am about my son going out because of the knife crime. You know, he's a lovely, innocent boy. His friends are lovely, but there's gangs out there who, if you look at them in the wrong way, could get a knife out, you know, if you're just upset. And I think there needs to be heavier measures on knife crime. I think 6 months, 4 months is ridiculous. I think they need to be a good 5 to 10 years. You know, this is serious and we need to do something about it, because I am terrified to let my son go out because of this situation. And he's a young boy. He should be able to be free and do what he wants to do.
Yes, Ali, what we need is zero tolerance on knives, don't we?
We do, but I mean, to quote Tony Blair, not that I'm a huge fan of Tony Blair, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. So I agree with Francine that the penalties need to be severe and they need to act as a deterrent, but the reality is that they're not. And what you need to sort of go back to, Mark, is fundamentally, why are people carrying knives? What is the reason? A lot of the people who actually are interviewed about this say, well, it's because they feel unsafe. And a lot of crime, as we know, over 40% of crime is linked to the drugs trade, county lines, gangs, etc. And so the recent announcement by the government that it was going to spend $300 million on trying to break up these county lines gangs is welcome, as well as the $780 million that they're going to be spending on rehab. So you need a multifaceted approach. You need to try and invest in youth services. You do need to invest in the police more. You do need to support stop and search, which has become very unfashionable. As long as it's done decently and politely, I think it's needed.
Can it be done decently?
It can. The thing is, it's become a tool in the culture wars, this thing, right? So I do understand that certain communities may feel targeted, but the reality is a lot of knife crime is happening black on black. Black kids are killing other black kids, right, as part of gang violence. It doesn't help that the police feel hamstrung by actually doing their job. You need to do it with decency and politeness. And also, if you've made a stop and search unit and there was nothing found, the police should be conciliatory to the person that they've stopped and searched.
But when stop and search happens, knife crime drops, doesn't it? Well, it's clear in the statistics that it works. I mean, it's a blunt tool, but an effective one.
It's an effective one. We also need to invest in youth services as well. Police have been cut as well. So there are multiple things to do, and I do agree that on the side of criminal justice, yes, the penalties should be more severe. Now the government's going to be trying to clamp down on the judges to actually make sure that they do give sentences. But the other thing is, Mark, are we serving ourselves best as a society by just locking people up? I'd rather see these people actually tagged and clearing out the rubbish, sweeping the streets, doing something useful. Because you go into prisons, a lot of prisons are full of spice, drugs coming in via drones and other things, all sorts of issues going on in prisons as well. And also the fact that prisons have their own issues, people being kennelled in their cells for hours on end, people coming out not being really rehabilitated, not being able to restart their own lives. That's not really helping.
It can be a university of crime and a recruitment,
Indeed.
A recruitment
but
platform.
I just think would that scare them enough? I think if they knew there was a heavy prison sentence or something more severe, I think it could help stop this.
I totally agree with you, honestly. All this, people who say, prisons, universities, crime and all that. If prison is a very unpleasant place to go to, then the people who are going to be sentenced to jail terms will think twice about crime. The other thing about knives, stop and search, I totally agree with you. Why don't we do stop and search all the time? Do you remember a few years ago, one of the solutions was going to be to blunt the end of a knife? Knives are far too readily on sale. We sell knives in this country like the Americans sell guns, if you see what I mean. Yeah. And they're very available. You can go into, is it Wilko's that replaced Woolworths? Yeah, Wilko's, that's right. I don't shop there myself. But I live in Stockbroker Belt, sorry.
More of a Harrods man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But you see what I mean? So you can buy a carving knife. Why isn't the end of it blunted? Most knives don't need to be pointed at the end, you see what I mean? And the point I'm making is that when you stick a knife in somebody, I'm told it's like pushing a knife into a bag of crushed ice. I mean, I've never done it myself, but that's how it's been explained to me. But if it's blunted at the end, it can't go in. Why can't we have initiatives like that and start thinking about, A, the supply of knives into society, B, making knives less dangerous, and C, Ali, you made the point that some people carry them because they do it for protection. I think the majority of kids who are carrying knives around are doing it as a macho demonstration of their position in society, you know what I mean? If you haven't got a blade, you're nowhere, man, and all that kind of stuff.
But Mike, a lot of this is linked to gang culture.
Yeah, I agree.
And the drug trade, right?
I totally agree.
So until we get to the fundamental root of why this is all happening, right?
Yes.
And the thing that I find, this all becomes sort of a race issue after a while. A lot of this crime and a lot of drugs-related crime is unfortunately black on black, right?
Yeah.
And it's become, unfortunately, I live in Tower Hamlets, right? And I see young black kids being attacked all the time.
Yes.
You know, and it's extremely worrying and it needs to be dealt with. And also, I think it was quite right that the government now announced that it's going to clamp down on middle-class drug users.
Yeah, because
this is not just an issue.
Because that's the market, isn't it? The middle class.
Feeding this.
Of course they are.
Completely wrong.
Of course they are. Some kid's got to be a road runner to get the drugs to the house in Islington where people are taking them over dinner. And that, I totally agree, has got to be massively clamped down upon. Listen, we have to hold our hands up and say in our industry over the years, there's been plenty of people who've, you know, got used to using drugs which are illegal. Everybody knows that. The pop industry, you know, the entertainment industry. Why has there never been a clamp down on the enormous amounts of trading that's been done in illegal drugs in those industries?
Hypocrisy, quite often from very woke politicians.
Yes, absolutely.
Who are hoovering up the Colombian marching powder at posh North London dinner parties.
Absolutely right.
Feeding a criminal trade. What are your thoughts on this, Mark, at gbnews.uk? Now, one of the moments of the Newsweek was the Prime Minister's advisor, Allegra Stratton's tearful resignation following the angry backlash over a video of Number 10 staff joking about holding a Christmas party. Let's remind ourselves of...
I understand the anger and frustration that people feel. To all of you who lost loved ones, who endured intolerable loneliness, and who struggled with your businesses, I am truly sorry. And this afternoon, I am offering my resignation to the Prime Minister.
Gwyneth Paltrow, eat your heart out. Well, were they real tears or crocodile tears? Regardless of whether they were genuine or not, the Daily Mail columnist Linda McDougall wrote in her Mail Online column that she thinks Stratton's tears set the cause of working women back by a century. McDougall, who has been a producer for several broadcasters, wrote, "Much as I was often tempted when things went wrong on the studio floor, and believe me, they did, I never cried in public. Far better to be blamed for being aggressive or labelled a difficult woman than to dissolve in self-pitying tears. To do so is a betrayal of everything that women have worked for in our bid to be taken seriously in the workplace. And when that workplace is the Palace of Westminster, I'm sorry to say, the betrayal is all the greater." Francine, do you think that it's wrong for a female to cry at work?
No, I don't think it's wrong, but I think it has to be for the right reasons. I mean, if there's a female at work and she's just found out her pet's died or there's been an accident, you know, with one of her you've got reason to cry.
What if Alan from accounts was a bit rude to her?
No, then I think, no, I don't think that's acceptable. I think you do need to be
What about if she got given a dirty look by Debbie in sales?
No, definitely not. But, you know, everyone has a different personality and some people are more sensitive than others and, you know, easily cry. It could be that time of the month for a woman, you know, when she's, you know, going through her PMT. You know, there are reasons why women get emotional a lot more than men.
Is it wrong to make this a gender issue? Because men can cry and some men do cry in the workplace. Famously Gaza, of course, on the pitch. I think when he was leaving, was it the Euros?
It was 1990.
Andy Murray has
hang on, half the Australian cricket team spend most of their life crying when they get found out, you know, doing things they shouldn't be doing in cricket, blubbing like that, and then, you know, a year later they're in another test and they're back on. They use crying to evoke sympathy from the public. In this particular case, I think Allegra was just overcome with emotion. I've no idea why she came out of her house and stood there and agreed to talk in the first place. She was so clearly upset, but she must surely have been upset a bit, mustn't she? Because her career was just disappearing down the gurgler and you know, I don't get this that she was crying because, you know, I gave, you know, the blessing to parties and all that. I still can't understand the original video, whether a party did take place that she was commenting on or whether they were mocking up a party that might have taken place. I still don't quite get it. And
very briefly, in a couple of seconds, Ali, but this is a sign of humanity, isn't it?
Well, I blubbered on TV the other day when talking about the poor 6-year-old kid, Arthur Levin Jones. I mean, when you heard his voice on, so I mean, I broke down. So there are reasons. Look, on this particular case, I think it was the emotion of the issue. No one wants to see anyone, you know, in that position. But unfortunately, politics is a punishing environment. She was thrown under the bus.
Even Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May have cried, and if they can cry, anyone can. Lots more to come. Here's the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, most areas enjoyed a bright but cold day on Friday, but all changed through this weekend as it turns milder, but we'll see some rain at times as well and turning very windy across the far northwest on Sunday evening. So if we look at the pressure pattern, then you can see a bit of a ridge of high pressure across the UK on Friday. That was what's brought those bright conditions, but this weather front is spreading its way in from the Atlantic, and that's what brings some rain across all areas through Saturday. So back to Friday evening and overnight, then a lot of places will be dry, some clear spells as well. A few showers across western parts of England and Wales, tending to fade through the night. One or two mist and fog patches in the east as well. But cloud will thicken in the west as we see rain spreading in across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the night. Some of that could be quite heavy. Turning milder as that cloud spreads in from the west, but another cold night to come further towards the east. So it's a bright start to the day across the east, quite cold as I said, but cloud will thicken through the morning here as we see rain spreading in across the whole of Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of Wales as well, and some of that rain could be quite heavy as well, so quite a wet picture through the afternoon. The rain lighter and more patchier across southern parts and not reaching the far southeast until later on in the day. Across the east it will be chilly once again, but further towards the west those temperatures will be higher than recent days with top temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. A wet spell of weather then across southeastern areas through Saturday evening and overnight, and for much of the night across England and Wales it will be cloudy, further outbreaks of rain, that rain heavy for a time across northwest England, parts of Wales as well. A different picture though across much of Scotland. Here it will be drier, a few showers, blustery showers in that keen breeze, but it will be chilly under those clear spells as well. Temperatures drop into single figures, but a milder night to come for much of England and Wales. So as we get started then on Sunday morning, most places will be off to a cloudy start. There'll be some further outbreaks of rain or drizzle across many northern and western parts, but some brightness, particularly across Scotland first thing and to the east of any high ground. But rain will turn heavier and more persistent through the afternoon. That sets the scene then for a very windy spell of weather across western Scotland through Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning, with a warning already in force for that. I'll see you soon.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
A busy last hour of the show. Matthew has just been in with tomorrow's newspaper front pages. It doesn't make for good reading for the Prime Minister, so I'll be giving you my reaction. Plus, we'll get the views of Mike Parry, Ali Miraj and Francine Lewis, my amazing panel. Also, lots of topics in our news agenda. We'll find out why working from home is a disaster for productivity. And don't forget, our Great British Game Show is coming up. A fun game based around a news story of the day. Tonight, it's called Family Misfortunes. We'll be looking at celebrity family photos around Christmas. And don't forget, I want you to keep those photos coming in of your Christmas family snaps. Caroline is thrilled. We've got hundreds, and we'll get to those very, very shortly. But first, here are the headlines with Karen.
Thank you, Mark. These are your latest headlines. The UK Health Security Agency says the Omicron variant is expected to be the dominant coronavirus strain by mid-December, with over 1 million cases if the current trend continues. Analysis showed that the first two vaccinations of AstraZeneca and Pfizer gave much lower protection against Omicron than other vaccines. However, the health agency said that initial data showed the booster jab provides around 70 to 75% protection against symptomatic infection. Care home residents will only be allowed 3 people to visit this winter. As part of the government's new care home guidance, each resident will also have one essential caregiver. The Department of Health and Social Care said the move was in order to balance the current COVID-19 risk with the need to keep people safe. Staff testing will also be increased from 2 lateral flow tests per week to 3, alongside a weekly PCR test. The independent body responsible for handling complaints against the police is considering reopening the investigation into serial killer Stephen Port. An inquest found officers in East London missed opportunities to catch Port, and mistakes probably contributed to the murders of 4 young gay men. He's serving a whole life sentence that began in 2016. One of the victims' mothers says the deaths could have been avoided if the police hadn't made errors.
It is the fact that it was just basic policing that wasn't done in the very first place. Had that been done, the other 3 lads wouldn't have died. Plain and simple as that. If they'd have done the basics of policing and, push Port more instead of just accepting everything he said, the other 3 lads would never have died.
A paedophile operating online has been jailed for 32 years after blackmailing nearly 2,000 victims. Abdul Elahi posed as a banker and targeted people across the world. He amassed images of child sexual abuse to sell on to other paedophiles. The 26-year-old was ordered to register as a sex offender for life after admitting 158 charges committed against 72 complainants. Birmingham Crown Court described his offending as being in a league of its own. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is a step closer to being extradited from the UK following a win by the US government in the High Court. Judges overturned a previous ruling that he shouldn't be sent to the US because of a risk of suicide. He's wanted on allegations of a conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defence information. Hundreds of thousands of leaked documents on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were published. His fiancée says they'll appeal the decision. You are right up to date now. Back to Mark Dolan tonight.
It is 4 minutes past 11. Many thanks to Karen. Now, I'm really excited because we've got a packed last hour of the show. We're going to play another great British game show. And tonight, it's called Family Misfortunes. We'll be looking for celebrity families, and you and my panel have to guess whose celebrity family it is. But at this time every night, we bring you the first look at tomorrow's front pages. So let's go. Let's start with the Mail, shall we? And their front page is a simple one. The headline, Tories Plan B mutiny, up to 50 MPs to vote against new curbs, as PM is hit by more Christmas party claims and a fresh row over Number 10's decor. But baby girl gives Boris something to celebrate. Meanwhile, The Independent, Rita Ora on deciding to freeze her eggs. Well, I had mine frozen years ago. The Kosovo pop star wants a big family, but says putting her eggs on ice is the best thing I ever did. 2 jabs not enough to protect against Omicron, but booster dose effective on variant analysis shows. 2 COVID jabs do not offer strong protection against infection from the Omicron variant, but those who have had a booster jab remain up to 70% protected. And of course, what no one's saying, but I mentioned in my monologue, it seems pretty clear that, in fact, Omicron is a mild virus, highly transmissible, but hopefully, mercifully mild. If you want to catch my big opinion piece, you'll find it on our Twitter feed. It's going great guns as we speak at GB News. The I weekend, booster can stop Omicron. It's all about the virus, isn't it, and the vaccine, not about public health and looking after your body. The Daily Mirror next. Let's have a look at what they have got. Is it the Mirror next? Yeah, brilliant. PM's party backlash. Scandal leaves 4 in 5 less likely to follow COVID rules as infection rates rise. So people less likely to follow the COVID rules. Every cloud has a silver lining, doesn't it, folks? The Times on a Saturday. New curbs to slow virus, daily tests and pub passports being considered. Data shows boosters are key against Omicron. Now, what a happy coincidence that we need to have a booster to deal with Omicron. You couldn't make it up, could you? By the way, a photograph there of the Cambridges. That's their family snap. Portrait of Joy, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's Christmas card, shows the couple in Jordan with their children Charlotte, Louis and George. I much prefer your Christmas photo snaps, so keep them coming. Boosters can beat Omicron tsunami, say the Daily Express. The Telegraph, keep the schools open come what may. The Prime Minister faces demands to put pupils' education first by avoiding a repeat of the COVID chaos. Boosters give 75% protection against Omicron. And let's have a look at this. Macron, the French President Macron, warns of self-fulfilling invasion talk. This in relation to tensions in Russia. The Guardian, tough COVID curbs needed by next week, leak reveals. Britain's top public health officials have advised ministers that stringent national measures need to be imposed by the 18th of December to avoid COVID hospital admissions passing last winter's peak. This according to documents leaked to The Guardian. Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, received a presentation from the UK Health Security Agency on Tuesday, warning that even if the new Omicron variant led to less serious disease than Delta, it risked overwhelming the NHS with 5,000 people admitted to hospital every day. Let's go to the Star now. You dirty rotters. Gang of bloodthirsty otters try to kill Brit on park stroll. Playful otters turned evil when they suddenly chased down Graham Spencer Wright and tried to kill him. Got to say, you have to have respect for nature because you never know when you could come a cropper, and we must always have respect and due reverence for God's creatures. Well, let's get reaction to those front pages from my fabulous panel tonight. I think you'll agree we're travelling business class. In fact, let me explode his ego to a further extent. Let's have a look at this. It's about Mike Parry, and it's from Robert, who says, Dear Mark, absolutely loved your interview with Mike Parry. Absolute legend. Well, how right you are. Mike, we know you're a legend. What do you think of those front pages? The mood music is not great for Boris Johnson, is it?
Well, no, it's not. And we've all seen the latest opinion poll, which I saw just before I came onto the set here. And I think Labour have got a lead on there of about 8 points or something like that. But you don't take any notice of those at this stage of the political cycle, do you? Because you go up and down with opinion polls like that. All I think Boris has got to do, really, is start looking like he's leading again rather than following, you know what I mean? Yeah. That famous old expression, you know, where is my army? For I am their leader, you know, and you chase and try and get in front of everything that's happening.
He's on the back foot. He's on the back foot at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. He's on the back foot, but the great thing about Boris is that he's a kind of instantaneous gainer of popularity. And if you saw Keir Starmer, you know, on the hustings ahead of the next election, and Boris Johnson, Boris would still come on and say, look, we had a few problems, you know, and, I've got a few things wrong which we had to put right, but let me tell you, it's all going to be very, very good. I've got an oven-roasted solution to almost every problem in this country. So vote for me. It'll happen. I can see it happening, you know.
I think it's very likely. Still with me, Ali Miraj as well, and Francine Lewis. Ali, the Prime Minister's had a baby daughter. Congratulations to the couple. Has he got too much on his plate?
Well, he does have a lot on his plate. I mean, the pandemic has really knocked out the last 2 years of a government, and the Conservative government wants to achieve a lot, particularly driven by the post-Brexit global trade agenda, global Britain, but also levelling up, which I think is actually, in essence, a very good idea. I think we have been far too London and South East centric for far too long. And I think he's also got to deliver for all those northern 2019 intake of MPs. But Mike says that when Boris gets to the next election, he will, in his usual inimitable way, sort of get away. He is the Teflon politician. The question really is, Mark, whether he's going to survive until the next election. At the present time, the only people that can really hold him to account are his own backbenchers. Now, backbenchers are, my sense is that there's no mood to remove him yet, although they are very, very nervous and twitchy. And the only thing that they wanted, and I've spoken to many of them in the last couple of weeks, was to just get to Christmas without any further mishaps. This whole Owen Paterson Sleaze affair, which was a self-inflicted wound, the subpar announcement over HS2, the ongoing issues with migrants in the Channel, 27 of them drowning the other week tragically, various other mishaps, speeches not going well, and then you've got this Christmas party gate, wallpaper gate, and now the COVID Plan B restrictions coming in, which the papers are showing there could be anything between a revolt of 30 to 100 MPs. So it's not an easy time for the Prime Minister. And I was talking to one senior staffer at the Conservative Central Office today who said that they've almost written off the North Shropshire by-election, which is going to be taking place next Thursday. And if they lose that, that will make a lot of MPs, Conservative MPs, very, very twitchy indeed.
Yes, I mean, I've had an email, Ali, and I really appreciate it. Let's have a look. I'm going to find it very shortly. And it's from David, actually, and he just says, look, what's going on? He thinks that we're being very overly critical of the Prime Minister. It's David and Alison, and they say, can you please tell me what's going on with the media, including GB News? Over the last week or so, every time I turn on the TV, all I hear about is a Christmas party, which may or may not have taken place last Christmas in number 10. David goes on to point out that the Prime Minister delivered Brexit, a successful vaccine rollout. It's a challenging time to be a government. You know, essentially, David's looking for a bit more positive energy around the government and the Prime Minister. Do you think that's a fair point?
I think it's a fair point to a degree. I think dealing with the pandemic has been very difficult for governments across the world. And I do think that one of the things that the government has got right, to its credit, is the huge success of the vaccination rollout. We have over 80% in this country that have had their double jabs. Now, the government's trying to ramp up the booster jab to 3.4 million a week. It's slightly behind at about 2 million a week at the moment, but they have done very well on that. And if you look at the numbers in Europe, it's about 60% odd that are vaccinated with double jabs. So we have done well on that. But I do think that the thing that really upsets people is these self-inflicted wounds that the Prime Minister keeps sort of getting into these mishaps, which is not helpful at all. And if you are going around explaining to people and trying to take people with you and asking them to abide by restrictions, you have to be seen to be doing and abiding by those restrictions yourself. That's the problem. It's one of double standards, one rule for them, one rule for the rest of us. And that is a damaging narrative.
But does that include Christmas parties? Most people I've spoken to said I couldn't care less about a Christmas party. In fact, a lot of people had illegal Christmas parties themselves. I'd like to know about all the other great organisations in this country. I've got no evidence that there were any parties at the BBC, but it's a massive monolithic organisation. Did it happen there? I don't know. Do we know yet who these journalists were who were supposed to have been at the party? Nobody seems to have stepped forward yet. And that's because, honestly, I don't... What do you think, Fran? Do you think people really care about a row about a Christmas party? Do people care about a row about your wallpaper? I mean, you know, it's not going to change the country, is it?
No, but I do think people care about the whole Christmas party thing. I do, because of, you know, all the rules that were set in place. You know, and like we said, we couldn't see our loved ones.
Yep.
We spent our first Christmas without seeing our families
Well, the
last
Queen,
year.
Francie, the Queen.
Yeah, exactly. But I will, David, give you a bit of positivity on Boris, because I quite like Boris. I think he has the likeability factor.
Yeah, I agree.
And he wasn't to know when he became Prime Minister that COVID, this pandemic, was going to, take over the world. And he has had a very tough time. He was damned if he does, and he's damned if he don't. So I've always been pro-Boris. But I do think, like you said, Ali, these mishaps are so tough. They can't say one thing and do another, and that's what I feel.
But Francine, I mean, just to add to this, right? We've got apparently 170,000 Russian troops amassing again on the Ukraine border. The Chinese are building a Belt and Road Initiative across Central Asia, across the world, across the world, and persecuting the Uyghurs. We have cost of living potential issues and energy security issues. And on the back of all this, we're discussing whether the Prime Minister had parties in his house or not, or whether they took place, and how much, who paid for his wallpaper. This is trivia, but the problem is it's dominating the news agenda. It's totally irrelevant to the big issues that are facing the country, and people are getting frustrated. And the people who are getting most frustrated are Conservative backbenchers that are getting in the neck from their constituents day in, day out. I can tell you a lot of them that were meant to be up in North Shropshire campaigning in this by-election this weekend are on strike. They're not going to go. They just do not want to face the abuse that they're going to get on the doorstep.
But the biggest revolt on the backbenches is not to do with Christmas parties, it's not to do with wallpaper. It's about whether or not they start locking the society down again, whether or not they start getting ambitious about curbs that need to be inflicted upon us now. Because freedom is what we're all begging for. And now that we've got a taste of freedom, we want to hold on to it. That's the biggest problem he's got. And I think the mistake he's made is a lot of us believe that he's used the new measures on Omicron to try and gloss over all his other problems.
That's right.
And I think that was a terrible mistake. I think if he'd have ignored that and just said, no, we're not having him all... I mean, Michael Gove, to me, sounds like a bloke who wants to close the country down. Every time he opens his mouth, he tells us, there's a new crisis coming. There isn't a crisis. Omicron doesn't kill you. Nobody's ever been taken into hospital with Omicron. Nobody has died of Omicron, thankfully. And in some ways, sorry, Ali, just this. Yeah, sure. I spoke to one expert who said Omicron could actually be quite good for us, because if people start getting Omicron instead of Delta, and it's very mild, it then gives their bodies antibodies, and we start building up herd immunity against it across society. There could be positives to this.
Well, I think just one thing. I think the government has a very difficult job to do. I mean, the scientists only have one metric, which is to prevent hospitalizations and deaths. That is their sole metric.
That's not happening with Omicron, is it? That's not happening with Omicron.
I agreed, and that's why I think it was a little bit too early to be taking the Plan B measures. That's just my personal view.
Yes.
But the government has got a difficult job, and this, to be fair to Boris Johnson, the government, they have to look at all of these issues in the round, a multitude of factors, the impacts on business, the fact that we've got $2 trillion of public debt, the fact that there's impacts on mental and physical health, kids' education. So they have a really, really difficult job. And Francine's right, they do get in the neck one way or the other. But I just think that all this tittle-tattle is a distraction that the government does not need. They need to get to Christmas now in one piece. It's still not going away, this story. And I think next year, if this continues in January, I think some letters will be going into the chairman of the 1922 committee,
And I think it's common sense as well to everybody. I mean, just because they had their party last year, I mean, personally, every year I used to have like a little Christmas party. I'm not having one this year for the simple reason there is so much going around, whether it be COVID or just the flu, and I don't want anyone to be ill before Christmas.
No,
so
of course
I think
not.
it's a good thing not to have too many people in my house. I think it's just using your common sense as well.
I totally agree. I don't go to football matches this season. I've decided I don't want to be that close to people in a 40,000-seat stadium.
Mike, I want to say that you're a hero because you, I think, would classify yourself, I mean, you're an absolute picture of health, but you would classify yourself, I guess, in a vulnerable group, not because of your age or your excellent physique, but you have had heart issues in the past. And you're somebody that's technically in a vulnerable group that still wants society to get back to normal.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to normal because I'm happy to take personal responsibility for the way I behave, OK? And my personal responsibility includes, as you quite rightly say, if I've got a dicky heart, don't go off to Crystal Palace, who are playing my team Everton this weekend, because you're going to put yourself at risk. You might put other people at risk. And what happens if you do suddenly take a funny turn? You know, the medical people have got to come into the crowd and get hold of you and all that kind of stuff. So all I'm saying is I don't want any more stringent rules for anybody, but I will take the personal responsibility of making sure I don't threaten anybody and I don't threaten myself and therefore make myself a nuisance to the NHS.
One thing I will say, Mike, is to be fair to Johnson, and I've given him a pretty big kicking, as most people are at the moment, one thing he did get right was not only the vaccination thing, which Nadeem Zahawi did a lot of work on, but also lifting the restrictions back in July when a lot of people were saying that we should have maintained them. I think he got that call right. It was not an easy call to make. It was a big call, and he got it right. And the economy started reviving and coming back to life again. So that was a call he got right.
Let me ask for your celebrity predictions before we go briefly. I'm going to ask each of you, and you've sparked a fascinating conversation there, Ali Miraj, about possible letters going to the 1922 Committee of Backbench Tory MPs next year if these self-inflicted crises continue. And so I'm going to ask each of you, who is going to be the leader of the Conservative Party at the next election? Will it be Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, or Prime Minister Liz Truss? Because I think they are the serious front runners. First of all, what do you think, Ali?
I think it's a finely balanced judgment call. My hope is that the Prime Minister gets a grip and that he's still there next time. But I think both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak are credible. And Rishi Sunak's had a very good crisis and he's not put a foot wrong.
Is it 50-50 for Boris leading the Tories into the next election?
At the moment, I think it is. But he can turn it round. We know that he's got this ability to bounce back. He always has. He's an election winner. He won 2 elections as Mayor of London. He won a huge majority and got Brexit done. So he can't be dismissed. But he does need to get a grip. He needs to get a good team around him. And he needs to stop this pantomime that's continuing. And I think if he doesn't, I think the Tory MPs are going to be worried about their own seats and their own futures. A lot of the 2019 intake are quite enjoying being in Parliament. They don't want to go back off to the jobs that they formerly had. They want to achieve something in Parliament for their people, and I don't think they're going to tolerate it.
Francine, the Tories defenestrated Margaret Thatcher halfway through her third term. So what do you think? The next election, who fights it? Prime Minister Johnson, Truss or Sunak?
Oh, I actually think Boris is going to come back. I really do. I think we're going to give him another chance because he has done well in a lot of situations. Yes, he's stuffed up, but who wouldn't? But it could be Sunak. I don't know. But I'm placing my bets on Boris.
Mike, you've been a key political observer for decades, including in newsrooms at The Sun and The Express. What's your best bet for who'll be in charge at the next election?
Well, I don't think it'll be Liz Truss. I don't think she's credible. I think, getting on top of a tank like Mrs Thatcher and putting a helmet on her head, which made her look like she had a turtle on her head, actually, looked rather a bizarre picture, that she's just, over-promoting herself. Rishi Sunak is the obvious candidate to come through. I've got one theory that might happen, and that is that I think Boris might just give it up. He might give it up for a number of reasons. He won them this fantastic majority of 80. A lot of the Red Wall MPs are now threatening to rebel against him. They'd have never got into Parliament without him. And a lot of them weren't vetted properly, were they, Ali? No, because they weren't expected to win those constituencies.
But Mike, he's competitive, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's competitive, but look at the factors with Boris. He's just had his 7th child. He's absolutely flat broke. We know that. He hasn't got any money. He's moaned about that. He's now got another bill coming for the wallpaper in Downing Street. I can see him turning round at some stage, maybe after 3 years, and saying, do I really need this? Because we all know that once you're not the Prime Minister, you earn millions and millions of pounds more than you do being Prime Minister. And frankly, Boris needs it. I can see, and he's the sort of guy, right, who might just regard being the Prime Minister as a bit of a jape, and I've had it now for 2 or 3 years, quite good fun, did Eton, did Oxford, you know, did Mayor of London, now I've done the Prime Minister, think I'll go off and make myself a few million. I could see that happening and Rishi Sunak taking over.
I think he's still, I understand everything you say, Mike, and I think he's probably not actually enjoying aspects of the job at all and does want to make some money.
Yeah.
But I think that he still wants to beat David Cameron's record and win the next election and then go after that.
OK.
Fascinating predictions. What do you think? Will Boris be fighting the next election, and should he? Do you still back Boris? Let me know your thoughts, Mark at gbnews.uk. Before we go to a break, time for some more of your festive family picks. The Cambridges have released their Christmas family photo, but I'd much rather see yours. So let's have a look at what we've got. This is Victoria's dog, Penny, helping with the tree. And isn't she an angel? A very patriotic little outfit she's wearing too. That's a proper GB News fan right there. Thank you very much for that one, Victoria. How about this? Susan's granddaughter, Ariel. A really pretty name and a very, very pretty, cute little girl. What a winning smile. Crumbs, that's made my night. This is Paul, who says, here's me in the garden with my display. I wasn't sure where that was going. I've always wanted to see your display, Paul, but given it's a family show, I never thought I would. Paul says, I'm known as the king of the Christmas lights and even appeared in a documentary. That's Paul in Somerset. Paul, you get a round of applause for your Christmas lights. You've lit up our evening. I just love getting your photos, so keep them coming. Caroline, we're going to have to try to squeeze a few more in before midnight. Let's play out for now with Erica's dog, Ollie, by the tree. Absolute scamp. Look at that. Gorgeous, innocent eyes, floppy ears, a very, very fine hound, and a lovely tree as well. Good job, Erica. Fantastic stuff. Well, coming up before midnight, we're going to play another great British game show. And tonight, it's Family Misfortunes. We have celebrity families, but we fuzz out the faces of the celebrities. You've got to guess who the kids are and who they belong to. So I want our panel to play, and I want you to play along at home. And in the news agenda with my fantastic panel is working from home killing productivity. And what do you think about doing exercise at home? Because I hate it, and I'll explain why after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, most areas enjoyed a bright but cold day on Friday, but all changed through this weekend as it turns milder, but we'll see some rain at times as well and turning very windy across the far northwest on Sunday evening. So if we look at the pressure pattern, then you can see a bit of ridge of high pressure across the UK on Friday. That was what's brought those bright conditions, but this weather front is spreading its way in from the Atlantic, and that's what brings some rain across all areas through Saturday. So back to Friday evening and overnight, then a lot of places will be dry, some clear spells as well. A few showers across western parts of England and Wales, tending to fade through the night. Or two mist and fog patches in the east as well. But cloud will thicken in the west as we see rain spreading in across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the night. Some of that could be quite heavy. Turning milder as that cloud spreads in from the west, but another cold night to come further towards the east. So it's a bright start to the day across the east, quite cold as I said, but cloud will thicken through the morning here as we see rain spreading in across the whole of Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of Wales as well, and some of that rain could be quite heavy as well, so quite a wet picture through the afternoon. The rain lighter and more patchier across southern parts and not reaching the far southeast until later on in the day. Across the east it will be chilly once again, but further towards the west those temperatures will be higher than recent days with top temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. A wet spell of weather then across southeastern areas through Saturday evening and overnight, and for much of the night across England and Wales it will be cloudy, further outbreaks of rain, that rain heavy for a time across northwest England, parts of Wales as well. A different picture though across much of Scotland. Here it will be drier, a few showers, blustery showers in that keen breeze, but it will be chilly under those clear spells as well. Temperatures drop into single figures, but a milder night to come for much of England and Wales. So as we get started then on Sunday morning, most places will be off to a cloudy start. There'll be some further outbreaks of rain or drizzle across many northern and western parts, but some brightness, particularly across Scotland first thing and to the east of any high ground. But rain will turn heavier and more persistent through the afternoon. That sets the scene then for a very windy spell of weather across western Scotland through Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning, with a warning already in force for that. I'll see you soon.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Still with me, my marvellous panel, political columnist and social entrepreneur Ali Miraj. A very warm welcome to Ali for his first outing on the panel. Broadcaster and impressionist Francine Lewis. She hasn't done any of the other voices, but I don't care because my favourite voice is hers. And Fleet Street legend, broadcaster and a man who occasionally breaks out into song, Mike Parry, who of course joined me earlier for Mark Meets. A huge feedback to that interview, which you all enjoyed thoroughly. So if you'd like to see my interview with Mike Parry again, just head over to the app after this show comes off air and you can re-watch this programme at your leisure and, of course, for free. Now, the taxpayer has forked out more than £30 million to help civil servants work from home during the pandemic. That's right. They've received 30 million quid of your and my money to make working from home more pleasant. The highest spending body was HMRC, who spent £7.9 million, followed by the NHS England organisation, who splurged £5.9 million to help kit out their civil servants' front rooms and offices with the latest IT equipment. But some appeared to have spent over the odds for simple kit, including a water watchdog that splashed out, no pun intended, almost £180 on a simple cable that you could buy online for £6. This comes as a study of 215,000 chess moves by Rotterdam University found that the standard of play in a chess game was significantly worse when players competed online instead of face-to-face, suggesting that not being in the office is officially harmful to productivity. Now, Francine, I've got to say, there are certain departments of state like HMRC and the NHS whereby workers will need special laptops. They might need a secure internet connection. So perhaps we should take into account some aspects of this investment was required. And of course, a lot of people's homes aren't that well kitted out for work anyway. But what are your thoughts about working from home?
I think it's horrible working from home. Don't get me wrong, I have a very lonely job anyway. You know, when I'm on stage, I'm on my own and I'm normally at home doing my emails and things and writing, but I always normally write with somebody, and I like to be with them face to face rather than be on my own. I cannot motivate myself at home. Even when I'm taking calls, I want to have my makeup on, I want to be dressed up, even if I'm at home. But there's so many distractions. The dog will start barking. I'll think, oh, what's in the fridge? I feel a bit peckish. I'll go make a cup of tea. Oh, the washing needs doing. Oh, I need to go and empty the dishwasher. It is horrendous trying to work from home. And during the whole COVID thing, I had, because we've got new homes just being built near us, and the noise was horrendous when I was trying to take a professional phone call. It was really hard. And I think mentally, being on your own, not socialising with others. I mean, I was always jealous of people in the workplace because when I first started working, I was, in an office with loads of people, and I loved that. So, yeah, I think it's horrible and demotivating working from home on your own.
I think that the early success of working from home was fool's gold, Mike.
There's no early success in working from home. Working from home is not successful. And it's all driven by the civil servants, right? It's driven by the civil service. Less than 40% of civil servants got back into their offices in Whitehall and around Greater London and in other parts of the country. And once they're allowed, to literally swing the lead and stay at home and do nothing, I blame the woman Sarah Healy. Sarah Healy's the senior civil servant at the CMS. It's a culture department.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. And once she came out and said, it's great working at home, spend more time on my Peloton bike. So I wasn't really sorry to see Peloton shares diving 11% today because somebody died apparently on a Peloton bike in Sex and the City last night.
That's right. I can't believe you didn't watch it.
No, I didn't. No, I'm afraid I've never seen an episode of that. But what I'm saying is, I agree with everything that everybody thinks about working in an office. Francine, working in a glitzy office outside a studio, working in a newspaper program, newsroom, working a radio programming floor, you're bouncing ideas off each other all the time.
Yes.
If I've got half an idea, very soon that becomes 3/4 of an idea, and then bang, I bump into somebody like Ali, a huge brain, and he finally nails it, and we've got an idea. Or I see Francine, and I look at Francine, and I think, I've just seen something in your face. It's a very beautiful face. And I'm thinking, that's given me an idea. That's what human contact does amongst people. Working from home is disastrous.
But what if your work is
Awful.
quite academic? Let's say you're, processing tax returns or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need a creative collaboration for that, do you? And for a lot of people, it suits people to work from home. They don't have commuter costs. You could argue their carbon footprint is smaller. And also, they can pick their kids up from primary school or walk the dog.
No, it's the culture of it. I spent 6 months getting a new passport. 6 months this year to get a new passport. And the reason why I was told all the time, when I was speaking to people on the telephone, I'm sorry, I'm not in the office, I'm talking to you from home. Exactly the same things happened at DVLC. When
DVLA,
yeah, that's right, thank you, yeah.
Oh, and DVLC.
DVLC, trying to get new licences.
For the HGV drivers.
Yeah, but the story that started this was the £30 million bill to help the civil service work from home. Listen to this. Northern Ireland's Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs spent £2.8 million on their workers to give them facilities for working at home, despite the fact they've only got 3,000 staff. That was £900 for each worker. Got £900 worth of work-related benefits, including buying them new footstools to rest their feet on whilst they were working at home. It's a scandal. It's an absolute scandal.
I wonder whether this is a small cost compared to providing offices for these people. And I just wonder whether, in spite of Mike's clear anger on this, that actually we won't go back to offices in our droves.
I think it's going to be, I think hybrid is the new way. That is the new world order, whether we like it or not. And I do worry because I work in the City of London, spend a lot of my time there, and I see that the shops are closing. A lot of the office blocks are empty.
It's bleak, isn't it?
It is. And just by Liverpool Street Station, there's a beautiful arcade. All of the shops boarded up.
Yeah.
But look, I think that there is a space. I sometimes think you can be very productive at home if you've got to write a report. You've really got to get your head down without distractions. You can be very effective. But I do agree with Mike that there is something about being with other people, and if you lose that social muscle, it's not good. But also, when it comes to civil servants, some can and should work at home. But in the middle of the Afghan war, when the Taliban was taking town after town, right, in the space of a few days, you need your permanent secretary, not on holiday, but in Whitehall, and you certainly need your cabinet minister also at their desk. And I know he was on holiday, but a lot of them were away and either working from home or actually on holiday. That's not sensible in a situation like that.
No, it isn't. Well, look, what's your experience of working from home? Mark at gbnews.uk. Let's end this part on a positive note. This is not just a Christmas song, it's an M&S Christmas song. The retailer's Romford team has joined forces with TikTok and released a festive track with all streaming profits going to its charity partners, Shelter and Together for Short Lives. Here it is. Absolutely brilliant video. Romford, a great part of the world, and Shelter and Together for Short Lives is a brilliant cause. So well done, M&S Romford. Brilliant work. Lots more to come. We've got another great British game show happening. I think it might be our best one to date. It's called Family Misfortunes. We have celebrity families. We're fuzzing out the famous people. You've got to work out who they are from their children and other relatives. This, of course, in the light of the fact that the Cambridges released their family Christmas card today. And we're going to have a look at some of your family Christmas snaps. Can't wait for that. So much more to come. See you after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, most areas enjoyed a bright but cold day on Friday, but all changed through this weekend as it turns milder, but we'll see some rain at times as well and turning very windy across the far northwest on Sunday evening. So if we look at the pressure pattern, then you can see a bit of a ridge of high pressure across the UK on Friday. That was what's brought those bright conditions, but this weather front is spreading its way in from the Atlantic, and that's what brings some rain across all areas through Saturday. So back to Friday evening and overnight, then a lot of places will be dry, some clear spells as well. A few showers across western parts of England and Wales, tending to fade through the night. One or two mist and fog patches in the east as well. But cloud will thicken in the west as we see rain spreading in across western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the night. Some of that could be quite heavy. Turning milder as that cloud spreads in from the west, but another cold night to come further towards the east. So it's a bright start to the day across the east, quite cold as I said, but cloud will thicken through the morning here as we see rain spreading in across the whole of Scotland, Northern England, Northern Ireland, parts of Wales as well, and some of that rain could be quite heavy as well, so quite a wet picture through the afternoon. The rain lighter and more patchier across southern parts and not reaching the far southeast until later on in the day. Across the east it will be chilly once again, but further towards the west those temperatures will be higher than recent days with top temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. A wet spell of weather then across southeastern areas through Saturday evening and overnight, and for much of the night across England and Wales it will be cloudy, further outbreaks of rain, that rain heavy for a time across northwest England, parts of Wales as well. A different picture though across much of Scotland. Here it will be drier, a few showers, blustery showers in that keen breeze, but it will be chilly under those clear spells as well. Temperatures drop into single figures, but a milder night to come for much of England and Wales. So as we get started then on Sunday morning, most places will be off to a cloudy start. There'll be some further outbreaks of rain or drizzle across many northern and western parts, but some brightness, particularly across Scotland first thing and to the east of any high ground. But rain will turn heavier and more persistent through the afternoon. That sets the scene then for a very windy spell of weather across western Scotland through Sunday night into the early hours of Monday morning, with a warning already in force for that. I'll see you soon.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
I'll get to your emails very shortly. Still reacting to the big stories of the day is my wonderful panel. Ali Miraj, Francine Lewis and Mike Parry. Now, we've got lots to get through. We're going to play a great British game show very shortly, but let's have a look at a couple of your emails first of all. Working from home, Adam says, Dear Mark, I develop software and have no need to go into an office and sit on a stuffy, crowded tube train for 2 hours a day. At home, I can actually work without people pestering and interrupting me. Long may it continue. Thank you for that, Adam. And Gordon says, Dear Mark, my productivity is higher working from home and I'm a civil servant. I drink less tea too. I love it. There you go. Well, that's it. It's all about opinions.
Of course you love it, but you've got a gold-plated pension when you're a civil servant. You've got a job for life, right? You've got very, very limited chance of getting booted out for being incompetent or not doing the job that you're paid to do. And it's all being paid for by us, the taxpayer. So in my view, I'm your boss, pal, whoever sent that email. Get back to the office.
There you go. The boss isn't happy. This one from Julie, who says, Dear Mark, I'm a civil servant and have been in the office since July 2020.
Congratulations.
Well, there you go. And Mike will be happy. Top management, senior civil servants and the unions are responsible for staff not returning. It's really difficult to get staff back in, even for one day, as most don't want to come in ever again. We still have the 2-metre rule in the office, so desk space is limited, which is making it even worse. Julie, I'm really sorry to hear that, and I wish you well. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Right, now, earlier today, Prince William and Kate Middleton released the family photo that will feature on their 2021 Christmas card. And there it is. And they're a lovely family, absolutely. No denying that. In the past, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have gone for a more colloquial Christmas card set in the beautiful British countryside. But this year's edition sees them posing with their 3 children, George, Charlotte and Louis, in the Jordan desert. Very exotic. Charles and Camilla also released a Christmas card. And they chose to feature a chivalric pandemic moment from the Prince. Of course, that was very, very charming of Prince Charles and his lovely wife.
Sorry, what's he doing?
But they're not very Christmassy. Well, I think he's trying to help her with a face covering.
Yeah, I think he is, but I don't see the Yuletide sort of thrill in that, you know?
No, it's true. It's
Maybe
a very good point.
A bit different.
It doesn't seem to be that Christmassy. Let's have a look at some attempts at Christmas photos from other famous faces, the Kardashians. Blimey, there's plenty of them. All in white.
There are, aren't there? Yeah.
How about...
what the wealth is of all those people in that picture, because one of them is the youngest billionaire in the world, isn't she?
Right. You split it up, probably 50 million each, at least, and the rest. Love to see their Christmas presents, and that's not a euphemism. Here's Colleen Rooney with her 4 boys. Lovely, all in red.
But no Wayne Rooney.
Where's Rain? He's driving a young woman home to keep her safe at night.
Oh, that's a bit
After
harsh,
a visit
Mark.
to the pub.
Bit harsh.
Now, listen, Mike's not happy about that because we know he's a lifelong Evertonian. A toffee to his core. Well, don't worry, folks, because they do have a picture with Dad Wayne as well. There you go, Dad was there. And, of course, he's doing a great job, isn't he, at Derby?
Well, he's doing a remarkable job at Derby, considering the conditions under which he's working. And I think in the last rich list, he's worth about 165 million quid. What does he need that for every day at Derby? The players aren't getting paid. The stadium's going to be, reclaimed by the people who built it. I mean, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, but credit to him, right? He's still got fire in his belly. He's still got that ambition. A really impressive guy. And if you're interested in learning more about his life, then why don't you read Rooney Tunes by one Mike Parry, which I believe was a bestseller back in the day.
It was. Back in the day.
Shifted a few copies.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Look at you, little J.K. Rowling over there.
Quite right, yeah, if only.
Now, let's have a look. Finally, one guess at what this American family are asking Santa for this year. Yes, indeed. They've all got guns. That's a top American senator who's posing with...
That's the second one that's come out of America, hasn't it? A congressman also posted a picture of his own family. I mean, kids as young as 8 holding, like submachine guns. And
I would never let Mrs. Dolan have a weapon. That would be a very bad idea. Even a kitchen knife. But the fun doesn't end there because it's time for this. Yes, at this time every night we play a Great British Game Show, and it's based always around a news story of the day. Today's game is inspired by those celebrities who love to share their family life on social media. So, panel and you at home, I'm going to show you a famous family, but the parents' faces, who are famous, will be blurred out. See if you can tell me whose family it is. Let's play Family Misfortunes. And let's start with family number 1.
Oh,
OK, so who could it be, Francine?
You know what, Mrs. Me and my Ozzy took this picture with our darling children because they're fabulous darlings.
Absolutely, a slam dunk.
Well,
yes, indeed.
I wouldn't know without your impersonation.
very good. There you go. It is, let's have the reveal. It is, of course, the Osbournes. That's right, Daryl, let's have a look at that. It's the after photo. Of course, I'm a big fan of the Osbournes, Ozzy and Sharon and their lovely kids. I'm a huge fan of those guys. OK, next up, another second round of Family Misfortunes. Which celebrity family is this?
I think I know.
And one of them is a man in black, Mike.
I think I know.
Man in black. It's not William Rees-Mogg, is it? I only say that because the guy's so tall.
That's right, and quite elegantly dressed.
Yeah.
But no, it's not.
Can
Francine, you look like you're edging.
Is it Will Smith and Jada?
It is Will and Jada Pinkett Smith.
And we got the clue from Man in Black. Yeah.
There you go. Next up, how about this? This is a very athletic family. 6 kids with a powerful dad. Let's have a look at family number 3. We're just going to fire that up very shortly. We're going to blur out the famous parent. You've got to guess from the children. I think we're going to skip forward. Should we go to our next one? Mm-hmm. Let's take our next family, if we can. And I hope you're playing along at home as well. So the first you've had so far, you've had Will and Jada Pinkett Smith and the Osbournes. I can get a family 3 now. Here we go. All right, so...
Tyson Fury.
Well done.
Oh, well done, because I
big
couldn't
boxing
get that
fan.
one.
Right, Ali, we're going to have to offer you a bit of support here for the next round, I think. OK, how about this one, number 4? Family number 4. Now, I bet this guy will cook a great Christmas dinner, Ali.
You've got to get that one.
No.
Yes,
yes.
Absolutely, there you go.
Jamie Oliver.
Jamie Oliver.
Ali gets the points. Let's have the real. It is Jamie Oliver. That's only just a handful of his offspring, by the way. How about number 5? Family Misfortunes, who have we got? Reality stars, both of them, are now TV presenters. The lady's an entrepreneur. She's got a gorgeous London accent. Yeah. And her husband was
Gemma Collins?
brilliant in The Jungle.
It is... You know what? It's not me. I'd love to say it was. But you know what? No, it's not about me now.
Brilliant.
Well,
I can't get that one.
It is. Let's do the reveal. Stacey Solomon and Joe Swash.
Oh my God! I can't believe it. I didn't even notice myself. Oh my
there you go. We missed a trick there. How about this one? Number 6. Family Misfortunes. Legendary actor, Ali. Won a few Oscars, more than one. Multiple Oscar winner.
Tom Hanks.
Well done. That's the right answer. And that's his son, Colin, who's also an actor. What a tough gig to be an actor-son of Tom Hanks. Not ideal, but look, apparently he's very talented in his own right. How about next, number 7? Family Misfortunes. What have we got? Now, the lad on the top left-hand corner will give you a clue because he's the spitting image of his father.
Flint.
Really?
No.
No, good guess. Keep going.
I know who this is.
Go for it.
This is Gordon Ramsay's
Yes, and I'm glad you didn't do an impression because it would have got us taken off air.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
But you would agree that his son on the left-hand corner is a dead ringer, wouldn't you say?
A bit, yeah.
It is Gordon Ramsay and his lovely offspring. And then, last but not least, this is a US first family.
Oh, yeah, that's the...
well done, straight in there with the right answer.
Yep.
It is the Obamas. Fantastic stuff. Well, that brings this particular edition of the Great British Game Show to an end. Fantastic stuff. We've had an amazing show. I want to thank you so much for your company. Loved every second of it. I'm back tomorrow night. We've got some fantastic guests and big topics as well to get through. My thanks to my panel tonight, who I think you'll agree have over-delivered. But we're going to close out with some more of your amazing family photos because we've had the Christmas photograph, the official Christmas card photo of the Cambridges, but I'm much more interested in you. So let's have a look. This is from Christine, who says, best of friends and we are decked out for Christmas. 3 gorgeous hounds all ready for the 25th. I hope they're going to get some excellent doggy treats on the big day. Thanks for sending that one in, Christine. This is Debbie's dog, Bella, celebrating Christmas, because we're very happy. Oh, hasn't Bella got the most gorgeous, kind eyes in front of the tree as well? Because earlier in the show I said, look, I'm happy to see your pets, your kids, your friends, you name it. This is Nigel, looking very festive and ready for a party. Look at you, Nigel, life and soul. You got the hat, you got the Jack Daniels, you got the Coke.
The hat's too small.
Nigel, you are getting it done. Is Nigel's head big or is the hat small?
Yeah.
That's an imponderable. Nigel, you're a legend. Merry Christmas to you. This is Deb's dog, Nellie. Deb says, our lovely Nellie in her elf costume. Merry Christmas to you all, Mark. Well, look, thank you. And we love Nellie, and I love the name as well. Charming little elf there. I think she's hungry, looking for a little Christmas treat. This is from, and he calls himself this, I'm sure he's not, but Thick Geordie Mick. Hey, Mick. Oh, it's just dog.
That's beautiful.
It's a lovely house, isn't it?
It's a lovely background.
Lovely setup.
Yeah.
I can see myself splayed out on that rug. Scantily clad in front of the fire, do you know what I mean?
No one said any
just a robe.
Yeah.
Hiding my modesty.
Full of Baileys and mince pies.
I'm surprised there's been no little pussycats.
Oh, yeah, no, there's got to be a bit of Christmas pussy out there.
Yes.
Well, let's have a look at this. Kate says this is a photo of Foucault, the philosopher cat, pondering the magic of Christmas. Oh, I do like Foucault. There's something almost Harry Potter about
You can see
Foucault.
the evil in that cat's eyes, can't you?
Foucault looks very angry.
All cats are evil.
I agree.
You've got to watch
Not
cats.
I don't
He's
like
up to
cats.
something.
Cats are evil.
Absolutely right. Well, look, loved your photos. They made my night. And as I say, I'll be back tomorrow. Another big show at 9. So I'll see you then. Thanks to the team for working so hard. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Keep it GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.